Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of our NRL Supercoach team preview. Tonight we have a very special one. Obviously, the Supercoach has gone official as of today. We're recording this on Tuesday, the 23rd. For anyone who watches it down the track, so we're all very excited, Supercoaches. Personally, I've been still flat out. You remember us from last episode where we went until midnight. Luckily, we are a little bit early, but still, it hasn't changed. I think we're both getting absolutely smash of work, but Supercoach comes first before sleep for us, and getting you guys content, which I know you're all loving. You're messaging the page. Really, really do appreciate all the feedback we are getting, all the love and support as well. Keep hitting those follow buttons on the pages that you see League of Inches, all the social media pages, the podcast, YouTube, the like. It goes a long way of helping us out and supporting us so we can do this for you guys and get bigger and better. Look, you're getting all our secrets as well, especially Jesse's. You're getting to pick his brain. I like to say it every episode, but finishing 14th overall last year is ridiculous. So the fact that we get to pick his brain, especially now that everything has launched and we can see all the stats that he likes to look into, we can understand where his thoughts sort of go and sort of explain why getting some of those subscription-based services are probably worth it if you really want to go deep into Supercoach. But Jesse, I did mention it. Actually, I'll mention the teams quickly first. So we're doing the Storm, the Bulldogs, the Gold Coast Titans, and then the New Zealand Warriors. So a really, really big episode ahead. A lot of Supercoach quality players in this that could be in many, many teams out there. But Jesse, been a big week and the launch date today for Supercoach. How you doing? How you feeling?
Yeah, good. I had struggles like most people, I think, this morning trying to register their teams and whatever that sort of hiccup was with the app resetting, maybe just a bit of a techie glitch there. But I finally got in. I haven't decided on my team name yet. I'm just sticking with the team that I ran with last year, so for the current time being anyway. And I deleted my whole team, started all over again. So at the moment, it's a blank slate. So I'll be doing that. I think probably a fair few times now between now and the first round kickoff. But at the moment, it's nice to just look at a blank screen and a full budget and just think, where am I going from here? So funnily enough, these videos are actually helping me decide quite easily now too, which is very handy. It's a bit more of a deep dive now.
Listen back to yourself and go, oh, mate, you make a good point there.
Yeah, even just going through the teams myself while I'm saying it, I'm thinking,
Yeah.
you know what, that's not such a bad little thought process on it. So yeah, that kind of just conversation really helps sway you in certain directions. But it'll be nice to get through these four. I think these are very, very relevant teams for both, high output point scorers. Realistically, probably going to have a good handful of the highest point scorers at the end of the year out of a few of these teams, and a fair few cash cows as well. So yeah, good little group we've got tonight.
Yeah, you did mention you haven't said on your team name, but I have, and I'll officially announce it that I will be running with a bit of a play on words for the League of Inches. I wanted to bring that in for this year. My team name is Inch at a Time. So just a little bit of a play on words there. So
Shocking.
that is PG rated, of course. So no one try and be a bit dodgy about it
No,
and
no
report my
innuendos
name.
there.
It's just, yeah, it's just, hey, we're taking an inch at a time with this team and we'll slowly but surely get to first place. That's the motto this year. So let's get into it. Let's stop talking the nonsense, do what people want to hear, and let's get in. I've got the slideshow again this week, guys. So the YouTube viewers, it's a great episode once again to watch on the YouTube. We'll just have those little slideshows going, which seems to be a massive hit. So here we are, the Melbourne Storm. We've got a few little questions up there. Sort of more so to help myself and Jesse, I guess, as we go to make sure we do answer a lot of the popular questions that we're getting asked each and every week around these teams. And we're not going to really hit these questions. We might do towards the end of each club that we do if we haven't really got around it, but we should get around to pretty much talking about all these talking points as we go. So again, we'll go through just each player position. So for the Storm, first up, obviously hooker is Harry Grant at 750K. Last year, I think he had he had an average of 73.5. So obviously quite classy, a class
Mm.
above pretty much the field for hooker last year, and that's why so many people are just paying the premium to get him in. A lot of people already know how we're going so far with this. As we said, like Supercoach, things always change. I didn't think I'd be saying I'd be running with Cleary and Hines, and so far it looks like I am doing that now. So you never know what could happen, but We have spoken about different options with Harry Grant. I guess the first question here that we got to talking was, is Harry Grant a set and forget?
Um, it's a very strong point, man. Like we've gone through our teams 1,000 times and looked at it, and I think when it comes down to the Harry Grant discussion, like at the end of the day, yeah, he is. You know what I mean? Like it's Harry Grant. He's going to be number one at the end of the year, and you can already tell now, barring any serious injuries, there's no reason why he won't be the highest scoring hooker again. Um, at the point you make, whether he's set and forget from round one, that's a different discussion altogether. It's one of those like you've got a sort of half bad run to begin with an early buy. He's priced at a 75 average, break even as well. So, like realistically, you think about it, he's probably going to make his break evens in the first few rounds. Like, I don't see a dip in his points. But at the same time, you look at some other hookers who are cheaper, and you can kind of think they have that 75 sort of average output to begin with, and that's where their value comes up because they might score the same as Grant, or maybe just a little bit less, but they will make more than Grant will for the time being. So that's the sort of half point where you want to get that coin to go up to Grant, or if you have the coin, you just get him. But for those like high 500, 550-ish hookers, there's a fair few of them, even going up to Marshall King, who's just buying just smidge off 100k less. Like that's a lot of coin you get, probably for a similar output. So it opens up a lot of doors and a few avenues to upgrade other players in that position for what might be a very similar points output. But again, and someone might get a good score for a 50 or a 60, where for a Grant, that's a very average score. And that's the sort of quality of player you're getting. So it is worth the extra 200 on the other guys, but just depends on what your team looks like and whether you need those, need that extra 200, 150 odd K to really push the rest of the team up. So there are pros and cons for both. If you're going to get Grant in at some point, maybe after the bye, maybe after the Rabbits game, nothing says that he doesn't do what he does every single game from round week one onwards, though. So nothing wrong with starting with him, but I think there's a good amount of cash there, that you can get elsewhere. So it's tricky, isn't it?
It's very tricky, and the thing, like with the set and forget, like if you do select Harry Grant to start round one, you're obviously, as you said, like you're just leaving him in your team no matter what.
Yeah.
Like obviously, if there's an injury to him and it looks long term, I'd say time to part ways. And because I think with the Origin run for him this year, I think they do get nice timed buys as well. So I think getting rid of your Origin players to a certain extent is becoming a little less of the obvious play. Like there is some way you
Mm,
can just keep them, especially in, like, I'd argue Harry Grant's a good case of that, because if the season goes as we're predicting, he will be just head and shoulders above pretty much every hooker in the game when it comes to Supercoach when it gets to that stage of the season. But
yeah.
what we're saying, and where we've sort of both lent towards, and I've obviously been influenced by what you've said early on, but it does make more sense now, and listening to a few other things out there. But I can see there's Harry Grant for me isn't an obvious start for round one. Like it's just not one of those
Yeah.
players that, like a Nico Hines, who is just screaming to me saying, you have to pick him. Like you have to go that way. I can
Mm,
see Harry Grant still being good, but as you said, to allow me to go other plays, I feel like I can get away with not having Harry Grant for the first, as you said, probably until they get their bye and maybe even a week or two after that, and
yeah.
then jump onto him. And then you get probably a 6-week period there before Origin and that, where you get some good scores from him. He starts warming up because depending on how the team goes next year, Queensland, he'll have like KP fully fit. He'll be pushing for that 14 role as well. So that could
Hmm.
mean Harry Grant could become an 80-minute hooker for Queensland, is really pushing his case for that, because he'll be up against Ben Hunt in a head-to-head role, because I don't see Queensland not picking Ponga if he's fit.
Yeah.
So you've got Walsh, you've got Ponga there to choose from. So yeah, Harry Grant's an interesting one. It is definitely one to keep an eye on, especially with our podcast. I reckon we're going to talk Harry Grant weekly at the moment. Like
Yeah.
it's weird. And the
Yeah.
thing is, when we go into the replacement hooker as well in Garlic, he's on an option, but for 268k, if Harry Grant's to go down for a long term injury, I am 100% looking at Bronson Garlic.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, Garlick's position is pretty much nailed if something happens to Grant, and that's huge. If you listen to what we spoke about last week when we made the point about the Broncos and the Panthers hookers, they don't use them as an outlet very much. Nowhere near what Melbourne do with theirs. And it's always been like that. You look at Cam Smith and now Grant, like he's just picked up the reins and kept going with it. So, um, that just must be what Bellamy wants out of him. And, if Garlick's been in that system, you got to think that he would do a shift as well. So for that price, man, you would have to. But again, man, like Grant seems like he's made of stone out there. So there's nothing really going to happen to him too often. But yeah, it's going to be one of those situations where you either start with Grant and you forget about everything, you ride him through Origin, you might swap him out for someone over the Origin period, because you've saved all these trades at hooker that you might be doing working up to him, just to swap him out for someone who looks, hot for the few weeks that they're on, and then you finish with him, or you just trade up to him. But it's a hard one at the moment. I'm sort of undecided too. I started with Grant last year, and I ran with him the whole year, and I traded him out at Origin for Damien Cook, I believe, because he wasn't selected, and I rode that out, and then I got Grant straight back in. Whether or not that was a good idea or not probably was a bit of a waste of a trade in hindsight, but he was a lot
He's
dearer
human,
last year.
everyone.
Yeah, it happens.
He
Make some
makes
bad
mistakes.
calls. I make some bad mistakes, man. I didn't win, so there's obviously a few mistakes in there. But he was dearer last year, and a lot of people started with him then. So I think it's just the rise of all the mid-ranges now that sort of makes the argument against him a bit more solid, because realistically last year I'd sort of look at it and go, there's no one else but Grant that I'd even half look at. Now there's a few in there that are priced really nicely, with a good amount of upside. So, like I look at Robson and think he could probably do the same thing that Grant can do for at least a few weeks. Might close the gap a little bit, but allow me to spend an extra 200k somewhere. So yeah, I think watch the space for Grant, and it'll be in and out chop. And if I can find 200k, I'll probably get him in, but at the moment, it doesn't look likely. So,
and we will mention this for some of the players of interest we feel like for this podcast now that the app's fully out. At the moment, his ownership is at 25%, which I feel like is quite low. Like it is very, very
yeah,
early. Obviously, it's been only one day. I actually feel like that is quite low because the way I'm hearing people talk, I've literally only heard pretty much us say Harry Grant isn't the only option. It's starting to become a bit more of the norm, but I'm surprised the number's as low as 25. I was actually anticipating when I looked at that number, 40s, maybe
yeah.
even close to the 50.
I
That's
was thinking
very, very low.
40s. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was thinking at least 40. 45 odd, because he is the best hooker
People are
there.
listening.
Yeah, they are. And you sort of run down the line, and obviously he is more heavily owned than the rest of them, but 25% isn't as high as I was expecting. You've got Marshall King 13, and he's the next best. Obviously, barring Jaden Brayley, it's separate because of his price. That's why everyone has him in there. But it does drop off, and it quickly drops into the low single digits. So it's very spread out, like very spread out after him. So we might see that number, inflate a little higher closer to the day. I think it's still, it's all very tentative at the moment. The app's just started, so people will just be going, sweet, I'll just put Grant in there for now. But yeah, I reckon it does go up really. I think close to the day people start to think, yeah, Grant. So makes sense. But yeah, initially I thought it would have been a lot higher. So
Now, the front row forward position for the Storm this year, there was a couple of options last year. This year for mine, it doesn't seem like there's much at all. And looking at the owner percentage, it's literally pretty much all zeros and a couple of 1%ers. So everyone's on the same sort of page with this one. So I don't feel like we need to talk too much, to be honest. Like there's not even really cheapy options, and
no,
especially for the prop forward side of things. Christian Welsh was an option last year, isn't this year. His price has better options around that price for
yep.
mine. Nelson Sofa Solomona, who knows if he can kick himself into gear, and we know how important he is to the Storm. He just seems to, I don't know, he just sort of seems to float a bit. Like last season, he seemed to just float quite a bit, and he's just in and out of games too much for my liking to be considered a super coach option. So that's all I've got to say on the front row position as a whole for the Storm. Jesse, I don't know if you got anything else to really add for it, but there's just for mine, there's nothing.
Not really. I think we can glaze over it pretty quickly. Walsh, obviously, last year was coming off an ACL, so he was priced really low, and he worked himself back to pretty much exactly what his average is. But you don't want to buy him at that. You just want to get him low and get him to that. And Nass, yeah, he's a bit of a liability. He's got the dual, which is nice, but again, at 516, like I wouldn't. There's a lot better options out there, especially with their start. So yeah, nothing to write home about in the front row isn't at all. So.
No, there's not.
No.
Second row forward, though, is a little bit of a different story. Again, there's not too much ownership percentage to talk about, but there is one that right down the bottom, Jack Howarth. He's famous in Supercoach land now. I think he's more famous for Supercoaches than he is with his rugby league career so far. He's been very, very heavily touted throughout the couple of years. And he did play one game last year and got 44 from it. So if he can produce that this year and a bit more consistency, we'll all be all over this kid. He can play, but I don't know, something must be not right with his headspace. I think he mustn't be all there with training and just not getting picked. But we'll go sort of the top of the list, and one that was really popular last year was Katoa. He's priced at 656K though this year. For mine, I'm not going to go there for that price. Like I'm hoping this hard draw at the start might work him down a little bit. Then maybe he might be a play a little bit later on. But him and say Josh King as well. I know Josh King was super consistent last year, but again, it's just more so there's other options for me at the moment. Like Storm forwards aren't what I'm chasing if I'm looking at the Storm.
Not really. Katoa, like I really like Katoa too, and I think he's just that little bit too expensive. You know, if he was just even in the 500s, I'd probably have a good shout to look him as well. But yeah, it's just nothing too exciting, man. They haven't really had anything too outlandish as far as point scorers go in the second row for a while, and Katoa, I would say, is probably their best one. Well, you can show by the points. You know, his average last year was definitely the best one. So, but even still, like he had that eye injury, he went missing for a while. He came back really strong towards the end of the year, just belted out some massive numbers, and that kind of inflated that. Because if you didn't have that stint towards the end, I think he would have been priced, you know, around maybe Loiero or in the early 500s, and I would have been tempted. But now the temptation leans into Sean Bloor. Who's someone that we're going to talk about anyway. He's not added in as a Storm player yet, but obviously he is now.
What's he?
If you want to go, Bloor, I think he's low 400s or 450, somewhere around there. So it's a nice price. It just depends on where he gets the start. You know, like I'd be hard pressed to see him taking the position of Loiero, but it seems most likely. He's 445.
Why you bring? 445. I was going to say why you bring up his numbers. I'll say from a rugby league point of view for Sean Bloor, I'm excited for the move for him. I can see him being really good under Craig Bellamy. My concern is his body. He just can't seem to get consistent footy under his belt, and that's not going to change if you change clubs. Like that's just a body thing. Like unfortunately, some players we've seen it in the NRL over the years just can't seem to stay on the pitch, and it becomes sort of what could have been career for him. I really hope that's not the case for Sean Bloor because everyone knows he can play, and we've seen it when he played for the Tigers last year. He was trying to be one of those real hard style forwards for the Tigers when they needed it the most. And again, as you said, he could push Liero out of that position easily. But the thing is, Liero did quite a good job last year for the Storm. So it's not like it's an urgent thing to get rid of him and replace him. It's like Bloor's got to really work hard to get that spot. Like that's one thing Craig Bellamy loves his new recruits to do. Can Sean Bloor's body handle that sort of preseason? That's the other thing. Like a lot of unknowns for Bloor, even though he's very nicely priced. If he can get 80 minutes consistently, we're all over it.
Massive. Yeah, it's the thing. He's going from the Tigers to the Storm. Like you got to imagine that's going to take its toll pretty quickly, man. That's from the bottom to the top almost. If he can handle that sort of thing and get his body in check, because I reckon it probably will make a difference, man. Like realistically, what have the Tigers got compared to Melbourne as far as facilities and just in general? But he doesn't walk straight into that position. You know, I mean, there's a lot of people expecting Tarek Sims to walk into a position last year, and he barely even got a game. So unless he proves himself, and steps up and really makes a stand to unseat Loiero's position, I don't see anyone taking it off him. He didn't do a bad job, not enough to warrant him losing it. So I like it if he can get in there, but it's a lot of ifs and buts. So
Yeah. And we don't operate on ifs and buts in Supercoach either, guys. So
not at all.
get that thought out of your brain. Cheapy options. We've already mentioned sort of Garlic if he can get that sort of starting role for some points. We've already mentioned Jack Howard. Tepai and Moreau has just sort of always been around that sort of price tag and just doesn't seem to get enough work to
No.
warrant getting him in on board either. Joe Chan, really good talent in the works. Again, it's just about like they got, especially now with Sean Bloor as well. They just got a lot of players to fit into 6,
Mm.
7 positions. So it's more so you just got to wait to see, especially with their cheapies, a few injuries for some of these top line forwards, and then they might become a bit of a play. Who knows? Round 5, 6, 7, 8. Like if there's injuries coming up, then that's when you sort of look at those sorts of players.
Yeah, there's a lot of players in there that have had like one game.
Yep.
Morai had 6 games, but nothing significant. And a lot of them are duels, so you're going to get those games from, bench rotation with the forwards. It's pretty much Katoa and Loiero, and that's basically it as far as they go for second rowers, with very little deviation unless, Nelson decides to fill in for someone who's injured. But, if they can blood Howarth a little bit, that's everyone's favorite cashy bottom dollar second rower from
Bring
everywhere. So just give him a run. Give us the super
Bellamy.
coaches. Give us what we need.
Bellamy clearly hates Supercoach because if
He
he
hates it.
liked it, he would have had him playing 80 minutes by now. Let's go into the halfback and it's the halfback role first for the Melbourne Storm. Jerome Hughes is obviously a big one there.
Mhm.
1% ownership, which is not surprising. 722K. I'll put my hand up. I had him for a couple of weeks last year. And he actually didn't do too badly for the patch I did have him for, but he's not someone that I feel like anyone sort of starts with this year, especially with that tough early draw. Jonah Pezzett is not priced as a cheapie anymore, so he's someone that I wouldn't be looking at either. And the same with sort of Tyron Wishart for mine
Mm.
isn't really an option. Do you see any upside to Jerome Hughes for those players that don't want to go Cleary and Nico?
Not particularly. He's expensive. He's the fifth most expensive half
Yeah,
somehow. You know what I
surprisingly
mean?
as well.
I don't know how he, at the end of the day, he averaged more than Moses did, and I just didn't see him do it.
No.
I never really see that out of Hughes though, and he had a good year. Was it 2 years ago, 3 years ago? He had a really, really good year. But traditionally, it's always one of those like he might do okay. It's either him or Munster that really picks up the other one's slack, and more often than not, it's Munster, I would say. So far, far too expensive, and I can see his ownership's 1%, probably for a reason. He did have that really good purple patch last year, where I saw him banging out massive points. But I think at that point I had Cleary and Hines or SJ and someone, and there was no way I was getting off any of those guys to get onto Hughes, because it's fleeting. Like it'll come and go pretty quickly. And yeah, it's just not worth the ups and downs. Not at halfback and not for 720K. I think there's just far, far too much upside in those positions to get someone inconsistent. And yeah, obviously the draw to begin with is not ideal. The buy for the whole team in the early rounds and just everything. You make the same argument for every player in that team, and I think there's just too many better options than Jerome Hughes. So if you love him and you want him in your team, by all means. But I won't be
For it.
doing that. Yeah, help yourself.
5'8" is the only different option there is Cameron Munster, who has
Yes.
5% ownership at the moment. 728K. He's probably in that little handful of players that everyone's trying to decide between. A
Mm.
fair few people have Dylan Brown as their sort of one of their musts or one of their musts in Supercoach this year. And if you're looking at someone different, look, I know they've already got the little hand signals on Supercoach app already, and he's got the thumbs down at the moment, Cameron Munster. So and they're not fans of starting with Munster, but he averaged 71 last year, so that's still a good average. But I don't know, something's telling me to stay clear of Munster this year.
I really like Cameron Munster as a footy player. Not as a Queenslander, not as a Melbourne's player, but just in general. I think he's just got a great game, and
Any other
he
time,
just
the off
yeah he
season.
just breathes and generates points, and he's great. And I had him for a fair whack last year too. And it was actually, I think I had him until I got him after the Dylan Brown incident, and it was one of those like, oh, okay, I've got Munster now because it's not Dylan Brown. And I think a lot of people will make the same argument too. He's only a little bit cheaper, not massively enough to make some other team moves, but not a great deal. And you see the thumbs down, and it's only for the Panthers game because, like, he's not going to do much against the Panthers. No one ever does. But you look at the next couple of games, and traditionally smacks the Warriors and smacks the Knights. So there's a few hundreds in there. 99 points in the previous games, 110. Going back. So you look at those scores too, if you've got the plus, and you can see, he does do quite well. But is it Munster or Brown? Because it's surely not Cody Walker by any means, I reckon. So it's a tricky one. I would still lean towards Dylan Brown anyway. I think you just find the cash and go to Brown for the more consistent base. He's going to bounce back this year. He's got a better run for the longer term too. He doesn't have Origin, so there's so many factors when it comes down to it. And really, the only reason I would probably go back to Munster again if something was to happen to Dylan Brown. So it's pretty much it, really. He's an excellent player. If you can afford to have both at some point in the year after your team value's gone up and you've gone away from this starting lineup little debacle, you wouldn't be doing anything wrong having the two best 5'8s in your team. But I think for the initial startup, I'd probably be leaning towards Brown anyway. But yeah, Munster has his games. It's nothing, 60 points out of nowhere. So
you are nervous if you do go Brown. You're still nervous watching Munster because you just know he does have that in his game. He's a Supercoach friendly player, and
if he could do what he does in very small stints throughout the whole game, he would probably be the highest scoring player in the season. But you'll get monster halves out of him and then completely disappear for the whole second half. That's the kind of up and down you get with him in the game. I think I had him for a few games last year where he'd scored I think he was on 80 points at half time. And I'm like, oh, shit, I'm on for something massive. And then he ends the game on 85 and you're thinking, what happened in that second half? What happened in the dressing room to say, just stop playing? So, yeah, it's not all, rainbows and sunshine when you have him, but when he's on, he's on. So
the centre wings, there is some players here of interest. It's a really good position, I think, for the Storm. Straight up, though, number one, Nick Meaney has priced himself for mine out of the market after playing a lot of last year or most of last year at fullback. He is 694K. So he was scoring quite nicely in that back position. Even if I feel like Harpenhausen goes down early again this year, I don't think he's a play because there is another guy we'll get to shortly who I think will become that fullback. And Nick Meaney now moving to the centres, I don't think will generate an average of 68 points a game for this year. So
no chance.
Price himself out. Seve has. I'm surprised he's so high as Seve, 527K. He averaged 57 last year, so he was a sneak. He must have just been one of those sneaky players that just plodded along, and whoever owned him was not too dissatisfied with what he was doing.
Yeah, he averaged it out of 7 games though, and I think they were more towards the back end where everything was kind of already settled. Everyone had your Ozarkos and your Marzus and that. You weren't getting onto Seve, even for whatever he started at. So he was one of those gems that kind of just went, untouched towards the end of the year. And he's been priced accordingly, and he's going to remain untouched, I think, for the whole season. So because he won't be doing a 57 average. It was probably just a big lot of games there. Will Warbrick was a gem, though. Will Warbrick was bottom dollar last season. Cheapest centre wing you're going to get. And I held on to him for the longest time. And there was no reason to trade him. He was a prime cash cow last year too, just primo. And I think a lot of people jumped off early. Got a few good games out of him. Sweet, there's a little bit offload. Man, I held on to him for dear life. And he was an excellent play when I needed him to. And I eventually did trade him, but it's kind of the point now. There isn't anyone like Will Warbrick this year.
No, so you're obviously getting him back then. You'll start round one with the brick.
Oh, yeah, he's going to be first player in my name, the team. Gone straight in. I might even captain him. No, it's just that like
Ballsy.
you
We
look at him
spoke about
now.
big balls last year.
Yeah, man, huge. That's how I got there. I just captained Warbrick every round. Eventually, it'll pay off. A broken clock is right twice a day. So, um, if there was
Wisdom.
another great option, yeah, Supercoach wisdom. Tune in for the facts and stay for the philosophy. So, there's just no one at the moment. Even when you go through, not forget the Storm in what the discussion is at the moment, but just in general, there is no really good option starting wingers for 200k at the moment. And we might see him, but he was last year, and now he's been priced to what he got, 500. So that was an easy 300k. A lot of people jumped on, and you won't be going up from 500. You'll probably only going down. So it'll just be a little up and down thing with him. It'll just be up a little bit, down a bit, up a bit, down a bit. Much more consistent as far as that goes. And I reckon someone like Coates or Remus would be completely irrelevant Supercoach players, in my opinion. Just don't do it. They might be priced nice enough in a very strong team, but they do nothing out there. Absolutely nothing. So there's not a great deal of options bar Far Logo, who has
I was gonna say,
unbelievable potential.
get
Unbelievable
to my
potential.
man. Shout out to Fair Logo as well. Reached out to the page the other day. He has seen the fact that I am obsessed with the bloke.
Yep,
Again, look at the picture of him. How can you not be obsessed with that?
I know. You're
I
only
just
human.
I shared his dance video. He had on Instagram the other day that the people who follow the Storm would know what I'm talking about, and had a bit of a laugh. Had a quick little chat with him. So he's a great bloke. Good on him. Love your sewer, and I am all over you this year.
Yep.
Let me
Oh,
start.
guaranteed,
I want you to
100%.
answer.
Please.
I want to quickly put my thing with Sewer because you know how much I am obsessed with the bloke. Everyone
Hmm.
out there who follows the page, especially on Insta, would see I've done a few reels already about him. I've done a few posts on him. I am obsessed. I am all for 2024 being the Sewer logo era, basically, where we get to see. But, and I've got a question here: is he a must-have?
It,
The answer is a no. I actually have got
yeah.
rid of him from my team because the thing is he's not priced at that dirt cheap. If he was priced at dirt cheap, I'd probably leave him. He's just an awkward amount where I can do a bit more with 100k. And until I know he's going to get guaranteed at least 60 minutes, I want at least 60 minutes from him to get good points. Ideally, I want him to start at fullback. That's ideally.
Mm.
I don't want to touch him yet. The
I
more
just
I
don't see
think
how,
about it, the
yeah.
more I just think, even if he gets that 14 role, I don't think he's not going to be playing hooker. He's not a hooker. If he plays that 14 role, he'll get maybe 5-10 minutes in spurts. We know what Bellamy plays with those sorts of players, and it won't be much to get quick cash generation.
Mm. Yeah, I just don't
Yeah,
I don't
and
see
it
where he
pains
gets his
me.
minutes, man. I don't see where he gets his minutes, and it's a shame. Like I really want to have him in my team. It's the ceiling. There is no ceiling. Like the guy's going to go straight through and just keep
Yeah,
going up. You know what I mean? Like it's just you want to see him get that run, and there's this massive argument against so many players he's better than on that team, I reckon, and you could just put him on a wing and just let him do his thing.
oh
Like
yeah,
these other guys have had years and have proven to just score a try and nothing else. And you just think, fire, just give him a go. I just want to see it. Whether that's from a super coach perspective or actual footy in general, the guy's a beast. He's a little weapon.
oh,
He's going to just blow everyone up, and I think he deserves to get a go. But um, I feel like it's just going to be a bit of a headache to have if you start with him and nothing happens there for a long time. Because again, he isn't that bottom dollar. He can't be, with that game that he played last year. There's no way you can place him at 200, 5k. It's just not going to happen. But yeah, 339 puts you real close to a couple of, half decent little cashy options there in the center wing. And it's like, do you run off the uncertainty and just sacrifice 100k to have him because he might get a start eventually? And it could be one of those things where he gets a run, he's not going to make anything for a few weeks. And like Munro last year, where he came in, cleaned up for those who had him, actually didn't change price because he didn't get the game to do it. It might take a bit of time. There's a potential that he might get put out there for 5-10 minutes and go down to basement price after a couple of rounds. If that happens, and I need to cash out of someone, I might even just put him in there as the bottom dollar placeholder just to have him
Yeah.
and just brick the slot and just forget about it. But I don't think you necessarily should start with him.
Yeah.
I think it might just be a bit of a
It
headache for
pains me to
now.
say it as well. It hurts me.
Yeah,
So I know you're listening to the potty because you're a massive fan of the show.
love your
I
work.
do love you as a player. I want you to get the number one position. I love Pappy as well, but I want you to get it because I am all for you this year. But if you, I see 19% ownership, and I think a
Mm,
lot of people are getting caught in the hype. I did that originally as well. He was literally the first person I picked on Supercoach. I made a big post about it, said he was my first one. I did it, but the more I sit back and actually think about it, and you have to, if you want to win this game, you've got to take your head and heart and make sure they're separate. And on this occasion, this is one where I've got to put my head on and go, I'll patiently wait. As much as it pains me, and to not see that name in my side round one, I have to be smart this year because I'm beating Jesse, and that's all I've got to say about it. So, the
dreaming.
last fullback to quickly talk, and he's again, he's as cheap for what he can produce if he can stay on the field, which is obviously Ryan Papenhuyzen, 645K. He does have the down thumb little emoji by Supercoach so far. Again, it's probably because it's the Penrith Panthers.
Yep.
26% ownership. So he's quite high, especially he's probably the highest owned Storm player. I think he is even more owned than Green is for what we've seen there for the percentage.
1%. Yeah.
Yeah, 1%. So he's the highest paid. So we have already spoken about Pappenhausen at length, but we'll do it a bit more because it is the Storm section of it, and
Yeah.
people might not have listened to the other bit. But we're saying tread cautiously when it comes to Pappenhausen early on. I don't think even if you don't get on early, you're not going to miss out on too much, and he'll still be affordable for a number of weeks, in my opinion, because of the tough start. I don't think he'll be going 100 mile an hour from the get go. I think there'll be some plans in place to maybe even we'll see maybe him and Fa'alogo, maybe Fa'alogo will come on after 45, 50 minutes or something and give him a break. Who knows? But I don't think I think Bellamy will make sure he won. Like if the Melbourne Storm are to go close or to win this competition, they need Pappenhausen to be fit. The best way they can do that is not via to rush him at the start of the year. They'll make sure he's fit by the end of the year. So I don't see Pappenhausen is very juicy priced and it allows you to do a few moves, but you've also got to make sure you get some points, especially early on.
Yeah, the points early on thing is very important. I think it kind of gets left to the wayside when you're talking value. But his value is great. Like
Yeah.
645 for a fit Pap is a
Oh,
really good price because he was near a mil last year. You know what I mean? Like that was big coin for a player who can do not like there's not many other players that can do what Pappenhausen can do out there when he's on. You get consecutive 100 pointers with him when he's going. But he's had such an injury-ridden last 2 years, man. It's such a and they're not just little ones here and there, or he did his ACL and he was off for a whole season. Like he destroyed his knee and then he destroyed his leg and ankle. So those are pretty significant injuries that we don't know where he's going to come back and be. I hope he gets back into it and goes straight there. I still think the fixtures at the beginning don't help the argument to start with him because they're not the easiest runs. Like if he come out and he played like the Dragons with the first game or the Raiders or someone that you expect that's probably going to start off a bit rocky, you'd think, okay, it might be worth starting with him because you can get a good idea of his potential. But he's starting with the Panthers. Whether or not you thought that he was going to come out and blitz it, like he's probably not going to do that anyway. He's never had a good game against Penrith. His highest ever score against them looks like 53 points.
yeah.
Coming back off a very long stint away against the best team in the comp, you'd expect that to continue. And then he goes to the Warriors and then the Knights. So they're not the worst fixtures ever, but I still just want to see a bit more out of him.
So do I.
And you can afford to wait that long because after those three, they've got to buy, and then you've got an extra week to decide what's going on. So it's worth a wait, really. Like you can always get him in. It's obviously a lot of coin, and you might be cashing down from someone, or if you're running with a premium fullback and a really cheap fullback, it might be a lot harder to make that swap over. So you might, if you're very interested in it and you're curious, it might be worth just hovering close to it, just to make that switch to someone with like a Jaden Campbell who's very close in price. You can see where he's going to be after a couple of rounds and maybe make that switch over. But I've thrown him in a few teams, man. I really do like Pappenhausen, and for that price, I feel like you probably want to start with him, but
So do
there's
I.
just far too much uncertainty around it to be locked in. Like 26% ownership's quite high for what he's coming off the back of.
Yes. I was surprised with that number.
It's almost like they have just sort of go, oh, well, it's Pappenhausen. You know what I mean? It's Pappenhausen. He's all right. It's like, man, it's going to take some recovery to get back from what he come back from.
Yeah.
I know he's running and I know he's doing all this stuff good again, but he did that after he come back from his knee, and it didn't take long for what happened. It was a freak accident twice in a row. He'd have to be the unluckiest player in the league to have anything happen to him again. But if something does, or if he gets, rested, I can see that, but it's unusual to rest the fullback in general. But I suppose his situation's a bit different. It's not like he's just a bit unfit. Like he's got to get his legs back. So, Farlago might get that little stint run, covering for him here and there. They might split it like he did when he come back from his first injury with Nico Hines. I think he just got knocked out clean, and he was off for a long time there with the concussion stuff. It was a really bad one. He was a plank on the ground. Like it wasn't nice to see. And it took him a while to come back from that. And when he did come back, obviously Nico did a lot of groundwork and he kept the team going for him. But they did rotate with each other. It was 20 minutes here, might have been half an hour for maybe 4 or 5 rounds. And we might see the same thing happen again. I still expect him to start out of everyone. I just don't know. I don't know yet. Still early days. It might be worth watching and just seeing what happens with the trials and how he's looking. If he comes out and he's just going ballistic and you think, oh, Pap's back, then yeah, I reckon get him in. But it just have to wait and see on him, man.
Yeah, no, I do agree with that. I think that's pretty much it on the Melbourne Storm. We have covered all bases personnel wise. So let's click over to the Canterbury Bulldogs, a team. Still some options. I'll start off. I'll quickly say their first 5 because we have been speaking about that. So round 1 is against the Eels, the Sharks round 2, the Gold Coast Titans round 3, South Sydney Rabbitohs round 4, and round 5 is the Sydney Roosters. So we'll go from fullback this time and work our way up. The first thing I'll say just on the Bulldogs is in general for my Supercoach thinking this year around the Bulldogs is I'm treading very, very cautiously because of how they have been over the last couple of years. And I still feel like for the rugby league point of view, they're missing a few things, especially in the forwards, which could become a decent thing when it comes to Supercoach and getting some cheapies and getting some good game time out of them. But will that generate over to the rugby league side of things? I'm not too sure. And I'm still a little bit worried about their attack and where they will score their points. But let's get into it. So, look, their fullback options, pretty much real percentage options there. For the Supercoach side of it, they've only got 3 selected, but in real life, they could probably put about 10 players there. So there'll probably be some dual positions getting changed around early on this year. But they got Perham there, Hayes Perham, no interest at all, 512K. Blake Taff, obviously the new recruit. There is some whispers coming around that he will be getting the fullback starting spot and Crichton will start at centre.
I've seen that too.
I can sort of understand the logic, but at the same time, I'm thinking weighing up Crichton and Blake Taff. I know I want getting their hands on the ball more, and that's obviously Stephen Crichton. I'm worried that if Crichton is a centre for the Bulldogs, he's nowhere near as lethal, as damaging as where he was when he was with the Penrith Panthers. That's my main concern. But Blake Taff, 400K or just over 400K. There's a few out there that are entertaining the idea, 2% ownership. But I'm not touching Blake Taff. There's too much hesitation already from me.
Yeah, I just don't see it. Like, exactly what you're going to get out of Blake Taff. Like he's in a much better side too with the Rabbits. He just didn't really seem to do a great deal. Their fullback stocks could be so long, man. Like you go through it, I would prefer Connor Tracy at fullback than Blake Taft,
Yes.
and that's just another player they've got. They've got Perham, they've got Crichton. There's Tracy that can do it. Um, you could probably put anyone in there, to be honest with you, and they could all do something. And
Yeah.
I don't think Perham could compared to what the rest could. Um, but yeah, 2% ownership's surprising actually for Blake Taft. But if it looks like he's going to be getting that fullback spot, he's a starting fullback for 400k. Fair enough. But yeah, I personally wouldn't. I just think there's too much going on there at the moment. That club has just gone ballistic and signed that many utility players and players that can just go in any position, whether or not it's just coverage or, I don't know. I really don't know. It's so hard to look at that team and think of an actual lineup because you think you might have 8 players there for 4 positions,
Yeah.
or 5 for the one, or there's just so many, barring the forwards. They don't really have that sort of depth there. But for everything else, they've just got excess of. I don't know where it's going to go. And if Blake Taft does get the run there, how long is it going to last for?
We're unknown. Like that's the thing, and that's why I don't want to touch anything to do with Canterbury Bulldogs backline players for now. Like, obviously, there is a couple of those elite players, which a little bit of a different story. But again, I don't know if I want to pay a premium price for a Bulldogs player right now. I know there is one we'll get to in the wingers that you are
Mm,
quite excited about. But yeah,
always.
like the points you make, like it just feels I need to watch the Bulldogs for the first. I'd go past 5 rounds. I'd say at least 6 or 7 to see some consistency with how they're playing and the style. And look, that might mean I miss out on someone who's doing quite well points wise, but I'm willing to take that hit because it's a Bulldogs player. Now, put the jerseys swapped into the like who we just spoke about, the Storm. I'd jump on that player within the first 2 to 3 weeks. But just because it's the Dogs and there's so much uncertainty there,
Yeah.
I'm not touching it yet. I can't do it to myself. But when we go onto the centre wing side of things, like Crichton, to me, 2D, I'm not entertaining it yet. If he can get some fullback minutes and they can start to play a bit more of an attacking style of football, maybe I'll entertain it. But the guy just
Mm,
below, and I know you love him, Jacob
I love
Kiraz,
him.
605,000,
Yeah.
only 2% ownership. So let's not say
Absolute
too much, but
bargain. He's a bargain. He's a hell of a pod. It should be 50% ownership. It's the year for Jacob Kiraz. Out of everyone in that team, he's the most nailed winger they've got. You can put him anywhere. Yeah, I can't speak his praises enough.
workhorse.
He's a weapon. He's a straight up weapon. Whether or not everyone else shares the same views as I do, that's up to them. But I like the guy. I think
You don't
he's
want him to.
no, not really. Let me have that one at least. But yeah, no, he's a great player, man. There's a few goodies out there at the moment too, and you can build a very lethal Dogs team out of these players they've got. It's just how they start. You know what I mean? Like they struggled with attack a lot last year, and then you can make the point that you don't want to get onto any of their attacking their backline, their fullbacks or their wingers and that kind of thing because it's a fair point. They're not great. So when you got to look at a base side of things, because they're going to be getting those kick returns. They have to be. They're going to be getting smacked most of the time. So there's easy meters for a lot of these wingers. And if they've got the legs to run that much, and they're breaking tackles and doing all the good stuff like Carraz does, you've got these players there with good base, and the attacking outlet might not be there all the time, but they're going to have to work hard, man. They're going to have to work real hard. And they've got some good players that can do that. Like I think Crichton's really good. I don't know where he'll sort of lie when it comes to playing center, or realistically, man, he's a fullback in that team out of everyone they've got. But Tracy is the exact same. You can play off the bench, you can play at center, you can play on the wing, you can play fullback. Just put him on the field and he'll just do a really, really good job for you. But unfortunately, he's expensive, 566. It's a bit too high but his potential is really good. Blake Wilson's another one. It didn't do anything wrong to lose a spot from last year, so it's going to be tricky to see who actually gets in the lineup. Addo-Carr, obviously, you would think I would think naturally Addo-Carr and Carraz would be on the wings. And then it's like, who are their center pairings? Like, which two do you go with? Do you go with Bronson Cherry, or do you put in Crichton in the centers, or do you put Tracy in the centers? it's just so much to look forward to, I guess, with these Bulldogs trials. And then you got Drew Hutchinson too. Obviously, I wouldn't play him at centre ideally. He's probably going to be putting pressure on the halves there. So a lot of options. It's not fun.
I agree. Bronson Sherry is one you just mentioned, and let's talk a bit about him. He's owned at 33% ownership, so a lot of people are after him, I think. Also because of his price at 345k. I don't think he's a certainty to be picked round one. The more I think about Bronson Sherry, I think he could be eased back into things for the first few weeks. The only other thing is Connor Tracy has picked up an injury, which we still haven't been told how serious that injury is. It's sort of very murky waters out at the Bulldogs right now in terms of that. I think because I don't think they want to have sort of egg on their face after thinking they just signed someone who's got a longer term injury than they want to let everyone know about. But I don't know. Every time I do a team, like I think I'm now gotten around to him only because of a price thing. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be going for him. I'm just not super sold on Sherry yet.
No, like you can see why people are getting him in. Like there's such a lot of talk about Bronson Cherry going into that team, and obviously what happened with him at the Sharks, and coming back in, he did really good at the Sharks too. He did quite well, and then you think, okay, he's obviously disappeared for a couple of years. You don't know what that's going to do to him in general, being a couple of years away from the game. So how long was it? 3, 4 years?
Yeah, 4. I think this is the
4
4th year.
years, man.
So
That's
he
a
was
long
suspended
time.
for 4 years.
4 years is huge to be out of the game. The game's changed a lot in 4 years. The pace has changed. Like, it's got to see where it goes into. But traditionally, if you just thought, oh, there's a Bulldog center here for 345, you wouldn't even look at him. But it's because it's Bronson Cherry that people that, they go, oh, Bronson Cherry's back. Let's see what happens out of it. It's more of the mystique, I think, than actually like fact driven. Because he might not even get the start. And that's 33% ownership. Someone's got to find money to get someone else. If he does get the start, 345 is not a bad price for what he could do, because he's only got to make 30 odd points, which is very possible in that team anyway. So you see why his ownership is high, but yeah.
Before you go on, I just want to quickly pick your brain with that point, because I think it isn't a point that people don't think about enough when it comes to picking your side early on and getting it right, where you say these cheaper players are fantastic to get, obviously, but you can easily get very, very stuck if you go for someone, like you said, a Sherry, and there's no real options, because the real good options are already too far out of reach, and there's too many trades you have to make to catch up to that, and you're already way behind. Can you talk a bit about that logic side of things?
Yeah, definitely. So it's quite important to get that starting lineup, as balanced as you can, with players that are actually going to make that coin. If you get stuck with so many mid ranges, it makes it really hard to go up if they start just going stale. And if they go stagnant and they're not making anything, you start having to make multiple trades, and it might take you a couple of weeks to make the one trade that you actually wanted to do. Which by the time that comes around, you might have other fires to put out. So you don't want to be going 2-3 weeks trying to make a single trade happen, because you just priced out of it so early. And it's such an important time to get the right cashies in there, because, again, I make the point with Warbrick or like Khan Pereira. These guys started bottom dollar with basically guaranteed positions for, even if it might not have been anything too flash, they will have definitely gone up at least 100, maybe 200K. They both went up more than that. So, they're the kind of guys that you want to get onto, and they were basement and they were guaranteed. This guy's 350 and he's not certain. It's a lot of swing. Like, you're going 150K off the bottom dollars. We just got to wait and see, obviously, who's going to be in that position. But if nothing happens for Cherry and you start with him and he doesn't look like he's going to get a run, or he's just not there for whatever reason, it seems like at training he might not be with it. Think of 1,000 examples. Where do you go from him if you're left with a budget of 5K from like round one? You can't go anywhere. There's no one close to him. Everyone below him isn't an option. Otherwise, you probably would have had them. And anyone above him is of an option maybe 100K away. So then you got to go, oh, shit, now I've got to get rid of this gun and go down to someone in a mid-range just so I have a starting player. And that's really, really bad place to start from. And then you look at it and you go, shit, by the time I'd put my fires out, which could have been completely avoided in general, you're already 4 or 5 trades in and you've gone nowhere. You've just started at a very solid baseline, which you could have done. So a lot of it, it's all hindsight stuff, and you're thinking about, what might happen. But it's very, very important. Like you can get yourself off to a really good start. I got very lucky last year that I'd started off so strong, and I stayed so high the whole season. I never really dipped too hard, and it was from round 4 or 5, I was in the top 1K and stayed there, and it just got a really good start.
I didn't, unfortunately. Looking back on it now, I'd made that mistake, what you're talking about now. And that's why I sort of wanted to stop you there, because it did really resonate with myself. But I could see it where, looking back, I got it wrong. And I did do a few of those decisions that I shouldn't have done. And just quickly as well, off camera, just then, guys, you've probably seen me have a little giggle and stuff while Jesse was going. My phone was literally about to die. I had to send a quick message to Misso. Can you please bring my phone charger in before this phone dies, because I need the app, obviously. So she literally came crawling in to get me the charger so that she wasn't in the camera shot. So look, what they say is true, that they're real MVPs, the Missos. They keep us all going. And a final player that I think is very underrated when it comes to this, and whether you pick him at center wing or 2RF, Jamin Semen. And I think you're the one that actually has mentioned this to me, and I'll think about it, and I am starting to like it. Like, he's 317K, so he's not bottom dollar. But for the role I think he's going to play at the Dogs, like they haven't signed him just for the sake of it. I think he's got quite a role to play here, because I think what the Dogs have seen last year, plus started to play a little bit in the forwards for Penrith and make those sort of 20-minute stints or so around that sort of middle area. He'll do the same thing at the Dogs, but probably with more minutes. And when we look into it a bit more, they don't have a great deal of depth or starting options really when it comes to the props. I'm not saying he's going to start a prop, no chance at all. But he will get some decent minutes, and he'll get, for mine, easily. Maybe I shouldn't say easily, but he should be able to get what he's going to be priced at average wise, plus some.
Yeah, I don't know. It just depends. Like, he's going to get more of a role than he got at the Panthers. That's pretty much a given. So you'd think naturally he's going to score, at least his price. That's the thing. Obviously, you want him to score more than his price. Otherwise, it's, you're going nowhere. But, like, it's hard to make his comparisons to the Panthers because, where was he going to get that? Like, where's he going to get that role from? So, he was in a really good team to try and make these big points. He had a massive game last year. He's got 93 points in the game. So I remember that one too. It was a big one. But I think it was against the Cowboys. He's also got some really low games, but it just depends on what his role is, man. If he gets the minutes, like he'll do what he can do. His points per minute are pretty solid. Like, he might be up around that 0.9, thing. He just needs the minutes to get there. But again, that was in a really good side. So when they get battered, maybe different. But the Bulldogs might be different this year, man. They've got the players to be different. So they've got a point to prove, I think, and they don't want to go out there and just be, the whipping boys every week. But it's the same thing as Cherry, man. Like, what's he going to do? Where's he going to be?
Yeah,
You're probably off the bench. Yeah, you just get stuck, and I just don't like that because you want that bit of consistency, man. You want to be able to get off these guys too. Like, they're not long-term plays. You want to have them for a good stint when their fixtures are nice, or get some good cash out of them nice and early. But I just don't see him making anything for a long time unless he gets something solid. So the only ones in the whole center wing slot that I really do like, honestly, is Carraz. And you've got Crichton, but he's expensive. So there's just a lot of way better options at 650. But yeah, there's a lot of options there, and none of them are really viable.
No, it's not. The 5'8" position, Matt Burton for mine this year isn't really an option. We got the question there: is Matt Burton an option this year? I can't see it. 4% ownership. I think that might be for people who can't afford to go up to like the Munsters and the Browns, and they're trying to just come up with an option, which I guess is a bit of a talking point for those who might be going differently with their team. And again, it's just because the attack side of things, I don't know if it's going to be there straight away with the Dogs. So I can't be going for a Bulldogs 5'8".
Mm,
And the rumors are that they ideally wanted to play center as well. Like he's another one that wants
yeah,
the early talk has been about him moving into the centers. So who knows what's going to happen? Because then you think about players who aren't even in the Supercoach 5'8" position, which like Hutchinson, who can play 5'8". We just spoke about Seaman, who, if it came down to it, he could play 5'8".
yeah,
Taft can play 5'8". Heck, Crichton could be a 5'8". We've seen him do that for Samoa. So there is just so much uncertainty around the backline and the halves for the Bulldogs that you can't really pick anyone really confidently because we literally don't know yet any of these positions that are guaranteed. Like the only one you could probably say, I'd say Karaz and Adakar are guarantees. Like Crichton is definitely a guarantee, but we just don't know about his position.
mm,
And Matt Burton is a definite, but we don't know about his position. And quickly, Supercoach app, Carl
yeah,
Opoapu's got a thumb up saying, I guess good choice, mate. He's not playing. He's out for who knows how long now. He could be career over with, I think it's a back issue. So come on, guys, just little things, Supercoach. Get it right early on, please, guys.
yeah. It's because he scored 72 against him in his one game against the Eels, so they rate him like he's likely going to do that again. But
Yeah, okay.
obviously not. I started last year with Matt Burton. I expected massive things out of him, and it's always the thing. It's like you expect one thing out of him for 1 year, and it doesn't happen. It's probably going to happen the next year. So, um, it's a tricky one. Like he's priced at a good little bracket that puts him away from the top dog. So if you've run out of coin, like it's not the worst pick in the world, but I still
And
have a
he's dual.
preference at the same price. And he's dual, which is handy. Um, he's probably the most qualified to play center, considering it's Dally M center,
Yeah.
and that was a fill-in role. You know what I mean? Like you've got
Yeah.
him. Just he killed it there. But again, like look at the team, look who he was playing with. It's completely different. I
He's
just
just
want to
not a
see him get a bit
playmaker.
more. Yeah, I just want to see him
If
get
I
more of
say
a.
it every year, he's not a playmaker, and I feel sorry for him because
He's got a
he's
bomb.
almost been
That's
pushed
it.
into this. Yeah, he's been pushed into this position because the Dogs signed him on a bigger contract, which apparently just means you have to play in the halves. That's not him though. Let him play his strongest position, which is clearly center. Like I don't
Mm,
care. Anyone can send me an argument. Please send the page and let me know your thoughts on it. But I don't think I'll ever get change. My thoughts will change. He is a center out and out, and he could be a superstar at center. He
yeah, he
could
could be.
be more damaging for the Bulldogs at center than 5'8" because the pressure's been taken off. And let's say if he links up with the player he's pitched with here, Josh Adokar, what a combination. And
Yeah,
then
it'd
on
be
the odd
huge.
occasion, he could put the boot down and stuff, set up Adokar for a down the field, pick the ball up, score. Like that's got me interested. If he got moved to center, I'd definitely be interested.
Just imagine having that attacking outlet at center with that sort of boot on him. You know what I mean? Like how
Oh,
many more? It's just like, oh, okay, cool. You've got the halves there, and then you've got this guy in the centers that can do more than they can. Coming off his boot. It's just like from an attacking perspective, it seems like just a no-brainer having him there, and then just putting someone else in there because they do have that many options they can play in the halves. She can even put Kurt Mann there if you had to. So it's like they have the players now where they might do it, but again, I don't see them moving him out of that position. But
no.
shit, if he goes to the centers, he's very appealing. But I suppose it's like, why would you put a center in your 5'8" spot? Because his attacking game definitely depends on him running the ball, and you see him when he doesn't score well, he doesn't run. He just doesn't really do anything. He sort of just hovers around, bit of a turnstile, and just gets done with missed tackles. So um, it's just a hard one. I don't know. I think there's better options at his price point, and I don't like their runs initially with the amount of good teams they play and the amount of uncertainty in the team. It's just enough to turn you off everyone. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's a bit of a
Let's
nothing pick. So
let's skip past halfback because the only other option that we haven't spoken about is Toby Sexton. He's currently 0% ownership, and that is rightly so. He is not a super coach option. I don't even know if he will start. There's rumors that he won't start either. So again, we're going to
yeah,
sound like broken records. Second row forward is definitely an interesting point. Now, Jacob Preston I think he was bottom dollar last year or
yeah, you
quite
come out
close to it.
cheap as nothing.
He's now the most expensive in the pack at 615K. 60K average last year. Not an interest for me at this stage, but if you're like you've said, if you are one of those players that go for that top tier players early on, especially like the second rower, I wouldn't be disappointed. Like, I wouldn't say to you, nah, definitely get him out of your team. Like I'd go, yeah, like he'll get your points. Like
Mm.
he'll get around that
Oh,
60 point
definitely.
mark, if not more, week in week out,
Yeah,
and he'll be 80
definitely.
minutes. So
He's definitely the best player in that team as far as they go for second rowers. And you look at the rest of them. He started last year at 200K, man. He got added in quite late because he didn't start the year. He wasn't in the game. So he was one of those ones where you get on him nice and early and you catch all the price rises. But I had him from that. And what a player, man. I expected to trade him away thinking he was going to be a cash cow. He ended up being one of the bloody best second rowers I had. So, yeah,
you
I
kept
reckon he just
him.
keeps going, man. I kept him.
Yeah,
I did. I had him the whole year. So uh, I don't think he changes from that. I reckon he probably average goes up. He's a great player.
yeah.
It's a bit of coin to spend, obviously, but it's not that much really considering what he can do. So his
No,
position's nailed. A lot of people are going to go for the kick out route because of the price, but I think for what you're going to get out of him, it's worth the extra coin if you can find it. But
let's
again,
talk
like you
about.
do have kick out.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
yeah, I don't
I
love it.
know a lot of people are going 468K kick out. I'm all over that. Am the total opposite. I have not even entertained the thoughts yet of kick out, and I'll tell you my reason why, and you can come at it as well. Because for mine, Penrith, completely different team, and he was used perfectly at Penrith.
Yep.
I would still say he was never like he I think he had one good year where he was a super coach gun and he was
Mm.
doing it consistently, but you're relying on the Bulldogs to use him perfectly, which we haven't seen yet because last year he was injured for most of the year. We still don't know how they're going to use him. We're unsure because we haven't got the chance to see it. I don't think he's going to be an effort player. We have never seen him being an effort player. So when they talk about this mid tier that we're talking about for second rowers, and you're going to get some right, you're going to get some wrong. I think he's one that you're going to get wrong, and it's 14% ownership. So for the
Yeah, he's a
hype that was early,
mm.
early on when the app first came out, I feel like a lot of people are starting to second guess it because they're starting to think, oh, because the next player we'll talk about is at 33%, and he's for mine a much better and safer option and cheaper.
Yeah, kick out's going to be a headache, man. He's always going to be a headache. He's very little effort from him most of the time, and he just does the decoy run every single time. You're thinking he never gets the ball. Like he just runs straight through. Like give him the ball. Obviously, he's got the size for it. Just let him tunnel over everyone, but he doesn't want it. That's the problem. Um, yeah, I never really like it, to be fair. I think he could be cheaper, and I still wouldn't like it. So, 14% is quite a lot, considering who else is at that 460 price point. You know, you got Firma, you got Wong,
Yeah, true.
you got a
There is
lot
a
of other
lot.
players out there. It's a very, very heavy bracket, and a lot of discussion is going around this 400 to 500K second rowers. Everyone's talking about it, and I wouldn't have him in the list at all. If you had to choose six, he wouldn't even be on there. So Curran's in a shitload of teams.
Get
Um,
to him. Excite me.
excite you? I can't really. I
He's
can't
just
excite you about Josh Curran. I really can't. He needs a big minute. He needs a big role at lock, man. He needs a big, big role at lock to get those points.
you
He
have to
might
get it
get it.
though. That's the thing. He will. He
Do you
has to
reckon
because look
he
at
has to?
their pack. They have nothing. They can't
Yeah,
afford him to not be on the field working his ass off.
yeah. They've got a lot of they've got a lot of players to rotate through, man. If you can get it and he can get a good stint at lock, like 60 plus, then I like it. But outside of that, if he's going to be, 40, 50, if it's not going to be his, it might be Mans or Knights or Sutton, whoever it's going to be, man. I don't know yet. He's not in my team. Obviously, no one's in my team. I deleted everyone, but he wasn't. He wasn't in there before I deleted it all. So I'm on the fence, man. I'm really on the fence with him still because I do like Curran. I think he's got the potential for it. But yeah, heavy ownership kind of helps soften the blow if it doesn't hurt. Like it doesn't seem to happen for
Yeah.
him. because you're going to be with the pack that's got him. So it's not a bad thing. And I think the people that don't have Curran probably have Kickout, because I'll definitely not have both of them. It's just a terrible way to play. But
or do they? Or do
if they
they?
do,
And
then
looking at the percentage, there could be a third they've got as well. So, and maybe a fourth where we haven't even got to another one. So
yeah, their cash cow options are nicer, but
yeah,
we're just it's just a wait and see. Obviously, the hype is there around Curran. You'd expect him to start, but I'd still like to see what happens with him, because if he does, and it looks all right for him, 420 is a really good price. That's sort of where I'd want Kickout to even consider him, but still a ways off. But yeah, I
I'm a
suppose
fan.
you could just talk about
I've got him early. I
yeah.
have got him at the moment just because I am banking on the fact that he's a type of one of those players that I think needs to be on the field for as long as possible for the Dogs, because I think they're missing that. They're missing one of those players that just is happy to get in the trenches. The only worry is he does cop a head knock, so that is obviously a worry and a concern we have to think about these days with Supercoach, and how strict they are with it, in terms of they might not come back on the field. Like, it could be within the first couple of minutes and he's gone. So that is definitely something that you do have to think about when you're picking Josh Curran. Unfortunately, it comes with the territory.
Well, he wears headgear.
He does, but I don't know
Doesn't
how
do
much that
anything.
actually helps. But
Doesn't actually do anything.
we're not we're not doctors, but I
No.
just the stuff I've heard and been spoken to about with that sort of stuff, I am cautious. The other one, we go down Raymond for Talon Murray. I don't even know if he's going to be at the club still. He's digging his feet in and wants his pay packet. So I'll be shocked if he even gets picked once. I mean, if there's a heap of injuries and he gets to be playing big minutes, 363K, maybe. Ryan Sutton, we just haven't seen the best of Ryan Sutton since he's been at the Dogs. He's sort of become a meh player.
Yeah.
Liam Knight is 9%. Liam Knight is 332K.
Yeah.
Playing prop where they are definitely short in props this year. That is one thing especially starting middles, players that can come on and start the game at prop. Liam Knight, I can't believe I'm saying this, can be an option, a realistic option.
Yeah, I said it weeks ago, man. I said, when you're looking at that 300 odd 330K price point for your front rowers, because you put him at front row, I'd say.
Yeah.
He's got a lot more certainty about him than like a Lenu does, I reckon.
Yes.
Or, Palacia potentially for a bit more. Like, he's obviously not exciting. Like, you don't want to be throwing Liam Knight in your team thinking you're going to come home with it all. But I think he's definitely going to get a decent roll out of it, at the very least, more than the others at the same price. And he's a dual, which kind of gives him that little edge. So, 9%'s fair, man. I reckon that's decent enough. I just don't think he's got much downside at the price. It's just maybe a bit of a placeholder. Maybe someone to just plug a hole with that you think, because I reckon he starts out of everyone, out of who he's got to compete with. I still reckon he might get a start. It could be him and Max King. Realistically, I'd say I'd say those two start, and like I'd take that from a 300K prop right there. That's not too bad. But the amount of talk I'm hearing from Sam Hughes,
oh
man,
training the house
training
down, and
training the house down.
the fittest at the club, apparently. He's the fit.
Yeah,
Maybe
according to Jacob Carraz, mate.
The fittest.
Yeah, according to Carraz himself, he's the fittest. So forget what Gus has got to say. I want to hear what Carraz has to say.
Hang on a second. Guess who they said that sort of stuff about last year?
Who was it?
Your man, Jacob Preston. And we all know how that played out. So
not bad.
And we may as well go over to Samuel Hughes, because apart from him and Max King is 547, who was just probably one of those just toilers last year. A lot of people had because it was consistent points. He's the only other option, because we already spoke about Liam Knight and Ryan Sutton, who are both duals. Samuel Hughes is, I think, a must.
Yeah,
from the
I've
talk that we're getting,
guaranteed
238K, he will get some decent minutes as well, because as we've just said and has said about a million times now in this podcast, they don't have many middles, proper middles. And the big thing for the Bulldogs is They need to start winning that middle to let their backs do what they can do. We just say that their backline is exciting. They need their forwards to go forward before they can do anything with their backline. And I think the same with Hughes, the talk that is happening, he's just don't even think about it. At the moment, 24% ownership. But when round one kicks off, the ball kicks off. If he's not at 85% or 90%, I don't know what people are doing. There is
Yeah,
literally no risk at all.
should be higher. Guaranteed should be higher.
90, 100.
They don't have any size in their forward pack without
No.
someone like that. They're going to get walked on, and it's going to take so much pressure off their halves and their backline if they just had a solid middle. Max King does what he can do, but he's only one man. So I don't think it's far before we see him going. And for that price, yeah, guaranteed lock in for sure. There's no way you overhype that player that much, for the whole club to be doing that and not expect him to get a run, at least quite early on. So, yeah, I think you see that number at least double by the time the round starts.
I agree. That's pretty much all for front rows. And let's talk about hookers quickly. They've just signed Jake Turpin to the club, 293K. Not an option for mine unless Reed money goes down. And even still, I think they've got quite another few options in there that aren't listed here. Reed stung too many people last year. He's just 2% ownership for
Yeah.
a reason this year. I think people are still recovering from the hurt that a lot of us got. So, sorry,
Yeah.
Reed, but still from a paraffin, I'm still hurt that you did leave the club, and this has hurt me even more, stuffing my Supercoach season up last year. So a double-edged sword. See you later.
Yeah. No, I just don't think he's an option anymore, unfortunately. For as good as he was at the Eels and what he could do, I just can't see him doing it for the Dogs at all. You think with the amount of tackles he needs to make, he might actually be decent, but it's just nothing too exciting out of him, is it? It's just does his thing, and might get knocked a couple times, and that's basically it for him. So very little upside, nothing too out of control, not really worthy of a pick. I'd say 2%'s fair.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's pretty much it for the Bulldogs. We've gone
Mm,
through everything there, and we started strong, and then we quickly finished up there. Just shows you sort of the quality there at the club. I'm really keen to talk about the next club, and that is the Gold Coast Titans.
mm,
There is some definite options here, some talking points for sure. Starting at hooker, um, Chris Randall, top of the pops at 499. Not an option for mine. Sam Verrills at 463K. If he gets a better run with injury, I think he'll get a lot more minutes. He's actually one of the talking points here. Is he a sneaky
yeah,
option? 1% owned, so obviously not many people are thinking about it. I think he actually is a sneaky option. Like, obviously Harry Graham has spoken out, Reece Robson we've spoken about, JMK, Damien Cook. They're like tiers above. But value for money, I don't know. There's something I've always rated Sam Verrills as a hooker. I've always thought he was
yeah.
a really, really good player. I don't know.
He's
I
a good
feel like
player.
there's something there.
I just feel like he's way too injury prone. Like, he'll get the most obscure injuries, man. And you're thinking, like, how does that even happen to anyone out there? But if it's going to happen to anyone, it's going to happen to Verrills, unfortunately. And his price is nice, and I expect him to be the starting hooker for that team. But I think it's just too risky. I think he's just wrap him in cotton wool and maybe send him out there, because when he's on, like, he might get you 50. But for his price, it's decent. But I just don't think the risk outweighs the reward when you think about how temperamental he'll be when it comes to it. So that's a club that had a fair few options last year too for the hookers, and you didn't really see him get a consistent run in general. But whether that was injury ridden or not, but yeah, it could be okay. It really could be, but there's just nah. I probably wouldn't, man. Even at 560, like, he's not bad. Like, it's a fair price. Like, he's gonna probably outdo what he can do. He only did it in 11 games last year. Um, but it was 11 because he just kept getting something happening to him. Something kept going wrong. And I just
Yeah.
don't see that really changing. I think he's just one of those players that's going to be a bit injury prone in general. So, Yeah, again, like Randall had a good stint when he was playing lock for half that, and there wasn't exactly hooker points he was making. They were sort of rotated middle points, so that's his 50 average there. Same with Clark, but I don't think Clark's a hooker anymore. So their position stock's kind of running a bit thin, and Verrills would have to be their primary hooker, I would say, when everyone's fit. But 460, who else have you got around 460? Brandon Smith. Yeah, there's another weird one to tackle, but there's a couple around there.
Let's not
I would
open that up.
still, yeah, it's a whole different can of worms that, but I'd still be looking more towards like he's too expensive for the cheapy bracket, and he's not good enough to run as a premium, like a starter, like your sole hooker that you pretty much be playing every week. So it puts him in a really unusual bracket where it's like, which way do you sort of go with him? I don't see the upside there for him to being a cashy, but there's just way too many better options at hooker to be going for him at that price. So I don't even see where the 1% ownership comes in. Maybe it's his family. I don't know. Yeah.
I was sort of a little bit. I don't know why I was I think it's more so just because I actually rate him as an actual player in
Yeah.
rugby league, like
Oh,
not a
he's
super coach.
he's got it, man. Like, he was at the Chooks too and he did all right, but it's like, I don't know. I just think for the options, there's just, he doesn't really, he's definitely under the radar, but whether or not, the radar's been turned on or I don't know. I just wouldn't go there. Just with how many other plays you've got. If there was more options than just two, a starter and a bench hooker, maybe, but yeah, not for my liking.
I can't believe we spent this long talking about Sam Verrill. So let's move on to.
Yeah, that's you, that one.
When I mentioned the Titans, it wasn't in my
Yeah,
thought pattern. Tino Fa'asuamaleaui in the front row forward, 791k, pretty much as premium as you get for the front row position. 16% ownership so far, so quite a few people are jumping on board. The price tag's not scaring him off. He 77.5 average in 2023. Not that the projections mean much, but they're already projecting him for round one to get a 70, so he'd already be priced under his average already. So going off that, he'd lose cash.
who are they playing? What are their
Oh, sorry, the first
we'll
five
cover their
for the
starting
Gold
run.
Coast. The Dragons first, then the bye, which is a talking point in itself. The Bulldogs round 3, the Dolphins round 4, and the Cowboys round 5. So I can understand why people are getting on because it is a juicy run.
Yeah, it is.
I'm interested in the Titans this year. Like a question says in the talking points, what style does the Titans and Des Hasler play together though? Can they actually link up? Because from the outside looking in, it is such a weird mix. I have to say, like, I'm excited for the Titans. They need Des Hasler. I don't know. It's so weird. I can't see half of these players playing a Des Hasler style of footy game, and I can't see Des Hasler adapting his style to adapt to the style of footy that the Titans also need to play as well, in a way. So it's such a weird mix, but I'm looking forward to seeing it. I feel like it's going to be a fun show, fun roller coaster to be on. But Tino, 791.
Yeah,
What
it's
are your
very
thoughts?
expensive. It's very expensive. And like he's got that round one projection of 70. Mind you, he scored 38 points in round one against the Tigers last year. So you would expect that this year. You'd be like, oh, he scored 100, no dramas. He actually didn't really get up and start going until pretty much like midway of the year. It took a while for him to get going. And obviously he dropped a lot in price, which was really appealing for him. I think he got down into the high 600s at one point. But towards the end of the year, it was a must-have. It was Tino, big Tino for everyone. So I think you're going off the end of season form. There is a lot to change. Like he doesn't seem to start off as good as he ends. Desi doesn't seem to really utilize his locks as much. He might get a lot of minutes, but it might be just very boring. Who knows, man? I'm not going to start with him. I think it's just too expensive. It's just 16% ownership. Those people probably don't have Haas in their team. That's the play that it is. It's them. You're not playing him at second row. And you just want to get that big dollar premium. And fair enough, you get Tino in because he's max price. you can always go down to literally anyone and then pocket some, which is nice to have. The early buy is a lot for that kind of price tag.
Yeah.
But I'll be definitely getting on to Tino, providing he's doing it later on. But yeah, it's an up and down thing at the beginning. Round 2 last year, he scored 111, and then went right back to scoring into like the low 50s again, and then just kept doing this until he eventually got that consistent run going, and he was just pumping out hundreds every week. So, he's got it. Whether or not he has it with the Desi team, that'll be interesting to see.
It will be.
But I like Tino, man. I think he's going to be a great pick at some point in the year. I just don't think it's worth starting.
No, I agree with that one. I'm just quickly scrolling through. Mo Fotuaika, Jamin Jolliffe, Isaac Liu. Not really the options, I don't
No,
think.
not really.
It does. One thing it does show me is the Titans have some pretty good depth this year in the forwards, and they've always had a pretty strong forward pack. So that's happening again this year.
Yep.
Keenan Palacia is definitely one I am interested in. 11% ownership, so quite a few people are as well.
Mm-hmm.
Dual second row and front row, so that is always handy. 365k. Obviously, coming over from the Broncos, he had a great year last year. I thought he was very underrated with what he sort of did off the bench. Probably a similar style of role for him this year. I did get originally excited thinking he could turn into a back rower and start with some big minutes, but then I remembered both Fermor's there and coming back from that injury as well. So probably not. Obviously, you got Fafita and Fermor, who we'll talk about both shortly. So probably the similar role that he got at the Broncos. You could probably make a case he might get extended by about 5 minutes or so, maybe in the
Mm.
stints. Definitely, I feel like an option though.
Yeah, I think he's an option. Whether it's a big cash up option or not, probably not really. I don't see the upside too high on him, but I think you're going to get some decent numbers, here and there out of him. I don't think it's a bad play at all. 11% owned. It's pretty high considering. He's at 365. He's not at 200. And he's not up in the 400s either. It's like there is a couple in the front rows in general that are up in that like nice little 400 bracket. Obviously, Fodawaker's just priced way high up, but you got Jolliffe at 480. I don't think Palacia is going to do any less than what Jolliffe will do. Providing what sort of roles and minutes they get. I think he's got that sort of tank in him to do what he can do. Just give him the extra few minutes, and he'll probably get there. So yeah, no, it's decent, man. It's like the same thing with Liam Knight. Like you're getting him for the mid 300s, dual flexibility, and you kind of know what you're going to get. I would say so. His PPM was pretty much all year last year 0.9. So he just needs more minutes, which he might get. But again, man, the Titans do have a fair few forwards to get through.
They do. And I've just flicked over to the second row position. It doesn't slow down either. There
No.
is some depth there this year, and
Yeah.
I'm definitely in a rugby league side of things excited about the Titans this year. I think they're going to be right there around that sort of 8th position if this Des Hasler and Titans partnership can work and they can find a happy medium. But obviously, I'll skip over to the second row forwards because the bottom dollar front row forwards won't get any game time, unfortunately, at the moment with the depth that's on show there for the
Yeah.
Titans.
Yeah. Not
David
gonna happen.
Fafita, 832k. I never want to say no to David Fafita, but the fact that he's got an injury at the moment, there is still question marks over even if he'll start round 1. Like my thought pattern is, why would they rush him back? Because after round 1, it's obviously the bye, so that's an extra week
Yeah.
as well. And then he could come back fully fit in round 3, and then that could be the option and the play. I wouldn't say, but I wouldn't start David Fafita because I think personally, the way I see it now with my coach's hat on, yeah, every 2 points are vital every game, no doubt about that. But against the Dragons as well, yes, they'll be desperate. They want to start well. They've got so many injuries already. The Dragons, they were so unlucky, but I wouldn't be pushing for Fafita. So, and for that reason, I would not be starting with Fafita either.
Yeah. Like you'd probably allow a week or two. Again, like if he's that close to, he's got pec surgery. So like if he's that close to starting round week 1, just give him the week off and give him an extra 2. Like you're right there. It's a game you're likely to win anyway. And then he comes back against the Bulldogs, and that's another game they're likely to win. So you can kind of see where you would allow him to get delayed a bit. And for 830, if there was no injury cloud over him, I'd start with him.
Yeah.
He'd be in my team. He'd be the first player in my team. He's a monster, absolute monster. So that's the only reason I haven't factored 800k into my second row just straight off the jump. So I will be on day for feeder after a little while. I have to try and work out where the money's coming from, man, because it's big coin. 830 is a lot. I'd be relying on him to drop down, but you can't expect him to. He could average 80 comfortably in a game. Yeah, so it's hard, man. I don't see him dropping in price. That's the only thing. And you think, how the hell do I get onto him at 830 if I don't think he's dropping? It's a few cashies you got to sacrifice to get there. So, yeah, I just don't think
the problem as well.
It's a big risk to start with him.
That's a big problem.
You get someone,
with everyone starting this mid-tier stuff and picking all these like everyone's going to want to be on Dave Feeder eventually at some point. Whether you start, whether you get in him early or later, you need to make the cash for that to happen. And
man, if your whole team is 460k mid-tier second rowers, Fermore's a great pick at 467. The jump from Fermore to Fafita is monstrous. It's going to take you like weeks to get that sort of coin together. So it's a massive jump to not have someone. That's why I want to have at least one of those expensive enough second rowers that I can afford to go up if I need to. If you don't have one, you are losing Cleary or someone. You know what I mean? To make that quick swap, and it's not worth it. It's going to be tricky. But yeah, if he doesn't start round 1, like game week 1, you got to buy in round 2. The amount of coin having 830k held up in a player that hasn't played for 2 weeks is going to destroy that team.
Yeah,
it's going to show quite quickly, where the cash is lost, and I don't think you can make up for it with anyone. I don't think there's a player that you can put to fill his position for his coin that's going to do that same sort of job. Not for feeder anyway. You might be able to get away with a shift from Fermor, but not for what Fafita can do. So 8% owned, 8% probably don't see the risk, I guess. But yeah, I'm going to be on him at some point. Same thing with Tino. But again, I just think at the moment they're coming off such high prices from the end of last year, and there's too much unknown where they're going to. One, what Tino's going to do in general at the start of the season. And 2, whether David Fafita is actually going to come back in round 1. And if he does, is he going to do anything significant? Probably not really. He might not want to rush into it too hard. And then straight away they got to buy. So it's like I'll just be easily to avoid, considering how dear he is. So give it a few weeks.
I agree.
Give it a few weeks.
There's only one other player I really want to talk about in the second row position. It's the guy you've mentioned a few times there, Beau Fermor. 21% ownership, so there's a lot of people out there keen on him. I believe you're one of them, and I believe I'm one of the ones on the other side of it. So this would be good. This would be interesting. Tell me why you're for.
I just see the value in him. I think he's got a lot to go up. He's the kind of player that can score 100 points. You know what I mean? He's done it. He's done it a few times. He's going to get you those 40s and 50s, which is fair enough. You know what I mean? He's not 800k to start with. He's in the 400s, but his ceiling is very, very high. Obviously, it's because he's come off an injury, so there's that cloud a little bit where you can go, you might want to give him a break and just give him a run to see, but I don't even want to do that. I think if I don't start with him, I'm not going to have him. So I am happy to make that play, start with him, ride the wave. If it seems like he's going to be doing what he wants to do, depending on obviously what side he's on, you can always, think about the team layout around him. But I think he's a solid player. You look at his season in 22, very good. Like it was very, very good. He started round 1 with 105, and then pretty much, I'll just run through a couple. He got a 57 in round 3, He didn't play round 4. He got a 96, an 89, a 93, 107. There was just a few. Like there was a few solid. He's got a very, very high ceiling for a lot of teams. He's almost done it to every team he's played against. And whether it's over maybe 2 or 3 games that he's played in general, one of them has been at least huge. So it seems like he can do it anywhere. He's only priced at that price because he didn't play last year. So realistically, he'd probably be up in the 650 pluses, give or take, if he had a solid run. I think out of all the 400k mid-range second rowers, he's my favorite. Really.
Wow.
He is. Like providing his fitness, obviously he's coming off an ACL. If he's at the same level as all of the other ones on an open playing field, I think he's got the biggest ceiling out of everyone there. In the 400 odd, mid 50, that kind of thing. But he's always been the first that I've put in. As soon as I go for my Cam Murrays or someone in that 650s, my next spot I've scrolled right down to, I've passed everyone, right to the 400s again. And it's just Beau Fermor straight away. And then usually probably Sean Lane. So that will most likely, when I rebuild my team, be my starting second row trio that I run with for the first lot. So just have to see. But I really like his upside. I really like his price for his potential. I just want to see, obviously, how his fitness goes, but that's not going to deter me from starting with him or, even just sacking that second round bye. He plays the Dragons. I at least want to get in on that. And I just make sure I've got someone to cover him. That's kind of where I'm sort of sitting on that fence with Beau Fermor. I am on. Now, explain to me why you're not on. Probably the opposite points of everything.
I just, coming back from the ACL, I'm too nervous about that, and I have no doubt I'll have him in my team at some point. I don't think it'll be early though. I want to see him get through at least 5 weeks of football, and I know that means I'm going to miss out on a price rise if that's to happen. To be honest, if it looks like he's going to be getting a decent price rise, I'll jump on before that happens, because I'll have enough mid tiers to make that happen. He is a gun. I am so excited to see him back in this team, and Titans really missed him last year. I think a lot of people underestimate just how impactful not having him on that other edge was. And it really mucked around with the Titans and the way their forwards rotate, etc. So 467 for a guy coming off an ACL, I just think is still a bit too much. It's just a bit too much to. I'm a gambling man, but I'm not going to gamble that much. I want to go.
But it happened in the preseason. It happened in the preseason.
It did. It
was a long time ago. He's had a whole season and then a whole new preseason.
And the word was he actually could have played the last 2 or so weeks last year, but they decided not to. There was no point rushing him back from it and risking anything, which is really smart from the Titans. That's fantastic.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know.
I think probably the best way to run it. So.
And the other thing is, I don't want to have too many Titans players because of that early buy as well. And that's my thought with it. Is we're going to talk about another player a little bit further down the track in a different position who I want in my team early on, as you said, the Dragons, and I think they'll score some points, and I think he'll be all a big part of the point scoring. And I think if I have to give up one of them, I'm giving up Fermor. I don't want to give up the other guy yet. I haven't wrapped my head around it. So
I think because they're very similar prices, Fermor and this mystery man of yours, they're very similar, obviously different positions. At a baseline, Fermor does more than him.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah,
I'm going for the ceiling though. I've talked to you about this the other week. We mentioned it. I'm going for the big plays.
Yeah, but he had the ceiling too.
Yeah, but I think the other one, he has a ceiling. If he can take off like I anticipate he will this year.
Yeah.
No,
I'm right there with you. We're talking about Jaden Campbell.
Yeah.
We'll rip the Band-Aid off.
I think he can go big. He can go large, and especially against some of these early teams, I think he's going to make some cash, some good cash.
Yeah, I reckon think so, man.
But anyway, we could just debate this till the cows come home. We've got to move on with our positions, and we've still got one more team to go. We've got the halves. I'm just going to throw in here. Actually, no, I won't because is it talking about Tanner Boyd
Mm.
is the halfback option with Tommy Weaver. Now, Tanner Boyd, I've never been a Boyd believer. I don't think he's the best halfback at the club, if I'm being honest. I'm a massive Tom Weaver fan. If Tom Weaver gets the starting spot, I want him in my team. I'll get him at 245K. I think they'll do the safe option with Tanner Boyd starting the season there. No interest at all from myself when it comes to Boyd. I know his goal kicks, blah, 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 but I just don't think he's going to get anywhere near
No,
what we can see from the Clearys and stuff. And even,
no.
like you said last week, the Cherry Evans and the Moses, etc. So happy to move on from that one. 5'8", obviously foreign. Sort of wound back the clock a bit last year, priced at 471K.
Yeah.
Not an option, but the guy who has dual position 5'8", fullback. We started to talk about him just then. Let's just keep going with it. Jaden Campbell.
Yeah.
I'm expecting a massive year this year from Jaden Campbell. He has been told the fullback spot's his. AJ Brimson will be centre, which for super coaches is fantastic because even though I think AJ Brimson can score quite well at fullback, I think Jaden Campbell can just go boom. And
Yeah.
especially early on, like he could be look, I'm happy to say he's probably a flat track bully, if I'm being honest. But the good thing is he's got a lot of these flat track bullies to pick on early on. So I want
Yeah.
to ride that first up. And then if Turbo's looking good, if Pappenhausen's looking good, I can then just go up to the Pappenhausen after a few weeks because
Mm.
I reckon by that time they should balance out quite well. Because you look at the Storm hard draw, Titans much easier draw. That's my play at the moment. That's where my trade's looking at early on. I'm looking at that trade. So that's why I'm on Jaden Campbell.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent little combo play too. I think by the time the prices have settled, it might be in line with pretty much where exactly you'd want to trade him in. So,
Yeah.
um, that being, do you think his value is at fullback or at 5'8"?
In terms of who I pick, like where I pick him in Supercoach.
Where you actually physically put him?
Yeah. At the
Because
moment,
it's a tricky
uh,
one.
it is because there is a couple of cheapy options at 5'8", that a lot of people will go with. And you obviously want Dylan Brown there. But I want Dylan Brown there. So that's 5'8" for mine, sort of out of the question. But then the more and more I think about it, I really want to get a second gun fullback. But the way I'm thinking about it, I think Jaden Campbell can. I'm not going to say he's going to be up there with like your KPs and stuff, but I think early on he can at least get me through and hold me there, and I
Mm.
can count on KP doing what he does because he'll be my starting fullback. Campbell, as I said, can just do a job. So I'll have him as my second fullback, and then as I said, I'll hopefully move him to Pappenhausen, who's fully fit after 5,
Mm.
6 weeks, and they're going, all right, let's go. Let's get onto the Pappenhausen bus.
Yeah, no,
I
it's
think you've
fair,
got him
man.
at 5'8" though.
Yeah, I had him at 5'8" just because of how thin the position stocks were. I
Yeah.
think when it comes down to putting in a chip on someone, like, I'd rather. I think you're probably going to find better fullbacks
Yeah.
in that price point than you're going to find 5'8" in the same price.
I can't afford it.
Like, it's a nice easy swap to go from Campbell to Pap if that's the plan, and he's already in that spot. But realistically, man, with the amount of Raiders cashies that most people are going to have in those two positions anyway, um, Weeks is a draw, Strange is a draw. Um, who else are you going to run with? Chevy Stewart potentially. It looks like he might be getting a look. Xavier Savage. They're all got dual positions, so it's not hard to go. You down to fullback, you up to 5'8", and shuffle it around anyway. So it's not going to lock you into having that spot there. I got cornered in at the end of last year. I wasn't able to shift my 5'8" around at all. It kind of sucked.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot of depth in that position. So he's got a lot of value at 5'8". If you're going to run with someone like a Dylan Brown, but then like the collective value of your 5'8" position is very high. It doesn't mean anything really because they're only going to be from one, brick down to another. So, no, but yeah, him getting that news of the fullback spot kind of just, ticked the last
Huge.
box that I really wanted for him because, he came in at a very good price to begin with, and it was always that, oh man, like if he can get that starting role, shit, he's in the team straight away. It looks like he's got it. And yeah, like I'll be working a way into the team, whether that's at the 5'8" or at the fullback. But yeah, man, you've pretty much just put out like a little master play there, going from one to the other. It just depends. Like if Campbell's doing better than Pap, just keep going. You know what I mean? Like don't make the
Yeah,
swap if you
ride
can
the
avoid
wave.
it. Yeah, don't swap if you don't have to. But he's got a good run for a fair long time, so
Yeah,
there's the game here and there that gets a bit tricky for him. But I don't think, with the depth and the potential the team's got at the moment, I reckon they're going to be a bit of a smoky to push high up there on that ladder. They've got the players for it.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Center wing. I don't want to go through too much of the center wings here because not too much really grabs me. The only one really, Harley Smith Shields, which is pretty much bottom dollar cheap. He has 6% ownership at the moment, so he's of interest for a few people out there. At the moment, full strength, I can't see him actually getting in the spot. I know he's been a late season switch from the Raiders here, so that would give people an idea of maybe they needed him for some reason. But obviously, I think Jojo Fafita and Khan Piera would be your starting wingers, and then
Yep.
or even Philip Sami maybe, who depending on if he's either center or winger, and then
Mm,
Brian Kelly and Aaron Shoup or Sami are in the centers as well. So I just can't see him starting yet, but he's
yeah.
definitely one to keep an eye on. I think at some point he will play just because of injuries and suspensions and the like. It'll just be, can he get a big enough run to get some cash made from him? Because if he does get some game
Mm,
time, I don't know, but I won't be putting him in my team to start with. I know a lot of people have talked about it, but yeah, not me.
yeah. I think it's just because he's cheap, really. But he's got a lot of,
Yeah,
there's a lot to climb over to get into a starting position at the
yeah,
moment. Um, Brian Kelly's that one that goes, no one picks him for whatever reason, man. But he's always so consistent. Uh,
yes,
it's just he's just not that guy for whatever reason. Like
zero
sort of looking,
percent.
yeah, 0% owned. He's like a guy from last year. Like he's gonna do basically what he's priced at. Like he's gonna have those really big games, and he's got quite a high floor. But for whatever reason, no one really gives him a look in. So sorry, Brian. It's kind of just the way it is.
We love you, Brian.
Yeah, sorry, mate. You keep doing what you do. Maybe one day someone will own you, but
Is I guess because we've already really talked about the fullbacks. I'll quickly say Keanu Keeney is a freak. I don't know how he
yeah,
gets into this team, but he's definitely like sort of the Far logo effect. He's really, really exciting. I'd love to. I know it means Jaden Campbell might not be in the team, but I'd just love at some point to see him play. He's really, really good. Is AJ Brimson, if you can get the center duel, is he of any options? He's 587 at the moment. I don't know if you can
587.
really.
Yeah, I don't
And
know,
again, he's
man.
another center. Like that's another thing. He's another center. So that's one more to put into that stockpile that they've got. Harley Smith Shields has to climb over.
Well,
So
exactly. Yeah, so
crazy depth.
I would say you're probably thinking that like Jojo misses out, Sammy goes to the wing,
Yeah.
and you got Brimson on the inside of him. So um, 587, it puts him. Where does it put him? It pops him right in the middle of where you get like a Hamaso. The Hammers at just under 600. You got Alex Johnson, and he's above like your Penicinis and those sort of guys too. So yeah, it kind of fits. I just don't think I'd really be, wanting to put that much coin into a center who hasn't played in the centers, who has an early buy, and you've got better options. Like, from what we spoke about a couple of weeks ago, well, Carraz is 600. Like, I'd probably personally, I'd rather go there out of preference. For the jewels, you'd probably go the Hammer or AJ for the potential at the ceiling on him. So, yeah, I like Brimson, but I just don't know yet what will come from him in that center spot. Because he doesn't appear to be a very big guy physically.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Um,
mate.
I don't know what's going to happen there because then I've heard people say, "Oh, he's only a little bit shorter than this guy, and he's really good." And I'm like, "Well, he's a great player. Like he's really good, and I can't, you're not going to say anyone that's going to find otherwise that's going to say, Brimson's not cutting it." But um, I suppose it's just a wait and see. It's not someone I'm particularly too fussed on getting. I don't really.
No.
If he starts doing really well, like I'll be happy for the guy, but I'm still probably not going to make that decision to trade in for him. Um, whether or not, that's the right decision or not, I just have to wait and see. But yeah, he'll probably get the dual added before the game starts anyway. So you might see him pop up just because he's a new center in that spot. And if whatever happens and he gets shifted to fullback or 5'8" or anything, it might be really valuable to have him in the center position. But as far as actually being a center goes, I'm not super interested.
No, I'm happy with that there, and happy to end that with the Titans actually. So, really some really cool options, some interesting options,
Yeah,
I'd say there
there's
about the
heaps.
Gold Coast Titans, and surprisingly as well, because I don't think a lot of people probably thought about that coming into the game kicking off today. Final team, the New Zealand Warriors, or the final team we're doing for this episode. Um, so much to talk about again. It's crazy.
Mate,
We did warn you guys that this would be a big one, and it's living up to the hype. And straight away, fullback, Chance Nickel Clockstad. Unfortunately, like, he was good, but there was just awkward times for his head knocks and not
mm,
making a game, which so annoying because I had him for a lot of last year, and it just became. I loved when he was there, but when he wasn't there, and it was sort of felt like there was some crucial times as well when there was like another player in my back line that wasn't in and stuff, and I really
yeah.
needed him, and it just sort of let me down. So that's the only reason I'm steering clear of him, because if someone said to me that that was their second fullback choice, it's another one of those players where I don't think I could really say too much about. Nah, that's it. Get him out of your team. It's one of those. I can
Mm,
see where you're coming at with
yeah.
it. Like I can
Oh,
see it.
definitely.
So
Well,
it just
well,
scares me.
like talk about the run that the Warriors have to begin with, and
Oh,
you
yeah.
can kind of see the
You
argument to why you want him.
you remind
Like,
me again. I've forgotten
it's
every
all right,
one this episode. So Sharks round 1, Storm round 2, the Raiders are in round 3, the Knights in round 4, and the South Sydney Rabbitohs in round 5.
it's not ideal.
Not ideal, but it's also probably better than the other top 4 teams, I'd say. So it's not
Yeah,
ideal, but it's
how many of those games are at home? I suppose that's the thing that you look at with the Warriors is home game stuff is massive. The Sharks, the Raiders, and the Knights are all home games. So 3 out of the first 5. Um, that kind of dismantles any of that sort of away form or whatever you're going to get out of them. Like a home game for the Warriors is huge. Um,
yeah.
682, yeah, it puts him off the top tier. It puts him in an attainable bracket where you can go for one of the big guys, and he does actually fit the bill for a really nice second fullback. Um,
Mm,
it's what are you going to get? He's going to be the guy. You're not far off Pap for that little bit of a risk play, but um, it's just a risky play in general because he is very prone to concussion.
yes.
Um, I honestly I can't remember if I had him last year. I think I may have, and I got off really early. But um, yeah, it's sort of a given, unfortunately. Like you really hope it doesn't happen, but I feel like with Shans, it's like when will it happen? Because
Yes.
he just seems to look really battered after a game too. Like he must put it all on the line when he goes out there because he leaves the field looking wrecked. Um, I hope it doesn't happen again. But I really don't mind the play, but I just think it's a lot of coin. 680.
Mm.
Get 2 guns or
Risk.
go for 1 mid tier. It is risky. Yeah, it is risky. If he was a bit cheaper, I'd be like, if he was 600, guaranteed. I'd like, because you put him and you compare him to the Hammer for 600, and you think, oh, I would probably prefer Shines over the Hammer. But he's
Mm.
not there. He's dearer. He's dearer by a lot. And like 680, when you look at what 680 will get you in the centers, it's
Oh,
massive. It's huge, man. 680 at the center spot's out of control. It's a big points there. So, and if it's not 680, it's 700, and then 700's where all the elites are. So, I wouldn't consider Sean's in the elite bracket in general, but for his price, it does put you in elite territory for a lot of other positions. Um,
yeah.
which is kind of what would make me want to spend that on another position and not him.
Yeah,
Because
definitely.
yeah,
Yeah, as I said, I can't. If someone messages me their team or something and asks us for our opinion, I could never definitely tell them to delete. to lead him off
Mm.
their team. But yeah, it definitely does come with some warning signs. I think or caution signs. It's fair to say. Tomorrow, Martin, I'll just leave and probably talk about him in the 5/8 because that's where I think he will become possibly an option. He has the fullback duel, but I don't think anyone's picking him as a fullback, so there's no point really bringing that up there. Center wings is where, again, it's very interesting. Straight up, Dallin Watene-Zelezniak. Met him a few times and I have chatted to him quite a bit last year and love the form he was showing. A big question is, can he continue it? And that's probably a question we can say to a lot of these Warriors players because last year, I think a lot of people still are treading cautiously about the Warriors, going, "Oh, can they do it again?" I
Mm.
personally am a massive fan of the Warriors this year. I actually have them just think I think they can almost go all the way. Like I am really on the Warriors this
It's
year
ambitious.
again, but I can understand why people are a little bit, or I don't know. So, um, 719 though is just too much for me to
Yeah,
go. I'm going because
it's
he relies on so much on tries.
yeah, man. It's massive price tag. It's bloody ridiculous. Um, he started last year at 430. So, 430 this year doesn't get you a great deal. So, like he would have been a nice pick. I don't think anyone would have expected what he'd done last year. No one expected that from the Warriors in general. So, just with that alone, I would say I'd be very surprised if they can keep it going. Seeing Sean Johnson in a moon boot doesn't do you any favors when it comes to,
No,
any of that early season form. So it's not nice to see, but Sheck's a big addition. Whether or not it's his actual form, it's his just presence, I would say. Like having two of us a Sheck back at the club is going to just lift everyone, I would think, just naturally. So um, it's just too expensive. It's not. I can't see it even being a viable option at all. Like he's probably going to have those games again, but there's 720, man. That's big coin. Val Holmes is that price. You know what I mean? Like Toto,
I know who I'd
he's
choose.
yeah guaranteed. You choose the guys that
Yeah,
that have done it. Like it's not like Dallin's just popped his head out of the corner and been like, look at this guy. He's been around for a long time, man, and he hasn't done what he's done for a very, very long time, or if at all. I don't ever remember seeing Dallin in that kind of form. So um, maybe it's the permanent mullet.
yeah.
Maybe he's got that strength, but
It
I,
glistens.
I
I love it. It
it
just
does and
glistens.
it bounces too when he runs. It's like it's so graceful to watch. And he
I
galloping
told
down
him
the
last
line,
year, I
and you
go,
see this. Oh
he actually put a story up yesterday, I think, or the day before, he was with his kids and in the backyard. They had like a sprinkler system thing going.
yeah,
And I just said, mate, and it was just like all wet. It was just, I'll go, Ma, honestly, you got to just,
yeah. It's
you
glorious.
got to
It
stop it.
is,
Like he
man.
could do an OnlyFans just for his hair, and
Just mullet
I'd sign
snaps.
up.
Would you?
Oh goodness, I would.
Yeah.
Like that is gorgeous hair. There would be a lot of chicks out there jealous of what he has. So
It's the
RTS though is
best mullet in
is
the
he an
league.
option? Oh, easy, hands down, 100%.
Yeah, I don't think that's even close. Is RTS an option? If RTS goes to fullback, he's an option. I
Ding
want to
ding
see
ding,
what.
we have a winner.
Yeah, I want to see what he can do at center.
I'm not
But look,
touching him
man,
yet.
you're not. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think so. I don't know yet, man.
15% ownership.
Yeah, it's because he's two of us a check, man. You see the guy, and you see him back, and you think, oh, got to. I told you, it's gonna be a nostalgia pick. It has to be
Do you reckon the Warriors are the sexiest team in 2024? Bit off topic, but
sexiest. Um, I think they got
they've
a
got
fair
some
case to
talent.
point. Well, that's the thing. Like they've all got
Oh,
flawless skin. They've all got nice tans about them. So,
yeah.
like, as far as it goes, like you look at someone like I don't know. You look at who can you make the comparison with? The Bulldogs. So
Okay,
just a
yes.
mixed bag with the Bulldogs. Look at them all.
Yeah.
It's just a bunch of misfits. You got big guys, you got little scrawny fellas running around. You got just it's all over the shop. And you look at the
Got
Warriors.
ringers.
Yeah, with mullets too, but just a bit straighter than like it's all different. But yeah, you look at the Warriors, man. A bunch of warriors in general. Bunch of just men.
Good
They'll just
looking men.
yeah. They'll
Glistening.
stop.
When
They'll
they get
stop a
sweaty
car
and
live
stuff, it
traffic.
glistens.
Yeah, and there's where are we going?
They put
Anyway,
beach snaps on the other day, and honestly,
I
it's
saw
enough to
them.
make a
Yeah, you made a
straight
post
man
about it.
turn. I'm telling you. Oh,
I don't know, mate. You're on the way. I tell you what.
I appreciate it. Like, yeah, I
Yeah,
think we've got to. Maybe it's this time of night, and we've been going for that long. I'm
we
just
hit 2
a bit
hours.
cuckoo
We
this
hit
week.
2 hours recording, and it starts to turn a
There we
little bit.
go.
So yeah,
We're back. We're back.
we're back. All right, back into
Um,
it now. Little segue. I think Tuivasa-Sheck's got potential. Obviously, it's Tuivasa-Sheck. He has the potential to go. You know what he can do. Shit, he's done it forever. I just think he might be a potentially good pick. Whether or not he even needs to be a fullback, I feel like he's going to do some sort of like floating fullback thing. Like I just think naturally he's going to kind of be around there. I think he toyed on the wing a little bit before he left, and it kind of
wow.
gave. Hey,
He won't be on the wing. No way.
no, but I think
Come-
before he left in general, I think he
Oh
was
yeah,
just getting moved around, and it was sort of giving
he was
Shans
winger of the
the
year.
yeah.
He got winger of the year 1 year.
So,
So
like, it's not like he's not going to come into the center position and not know what he's doing. Like, I think he's going to be very, very capable of doing, what he's probably priced at. So I don't see the 15% being a bad ownership number for him because, it's just fun to have him in your team again. But again, it is a bit pricey for something that is completely unknown, but he's never had a bad year of averaging, really. I'd have to, yeah, I'd have to go and deep dive again to see his old stats because they're not showing at the moment because he wasn't there. So, look, it's not a bad start, really. I'd probably avoid it myself for just a little while. I wouldn't be surprised if I make an early swap onto him if he just explodes and I'm like, fuck, I can't believe I missed out on starting this Sheck. That was so dumb. As if
yeah,
you wouldn't start with him. And I'll be looking at it as a hindsight merchant, being like, oh, far out, man. That's one of those, have a look in the beginning of your season last year. What was the dumbest thing you did?
it's a
Really, when
clip.
if he just starts banging out 70s like Dallin was, as an average anyway, because he got, hundreds multiple times.
Yeah.
Shit, man. Should start with him. But he's had a good. I don't think the 539 is a bad price for him, honestly. I think if he was lower, I think if he was like 480, he would be so heavily owned.
Yes.
And if he was, closer to 600, if he was 590, I think you might see it down in maybe the 10%. But I still reckon a lot of people would be on him. So I think it's quite
Oh,
fair.
I'm on him.
Oh yeah.
I'm not on him for a super. I'm not on him for a super
Oh, not
coach.
on
So
for
I'm with
Supercoach.
you.
You're just on him.
I'm
He's got a
I'm with
poster of him in your
you.
bedroom. Yeah.
Yeah. Um yeah, I just sort of I need to see how he comes back because we've seen it in the past with players and he has all the talent in the world. Just coming back from a different code, just let him get his feet wet, get back into it. As you said, if
Hmm.
something happens to bloody Nickel Clockstar, he's definitely an option. But yeah,
Oh, guaranteed.
that's that.
100%.
So
Sorry, man.
5'8", nah,
Yeah.
you're right. 5'8", Luke Metcalf, 483. With the other options around at the moment, I just don't think he's an option. So I'm happy to just
Metcalf.
sort of, yeah.
Sorry. It looks like I'm just doing other stuff. I'm just trying to grab a cable. My phone's about to die as well. I don't mind Metcalf for that position, really, man. Yeah, I know. It's been a while. For his price tag, I don't mind it at all because I don't think he's going to be losing that spot at all. And I think, he's got a lot of upside, but again, like he played 12 games. He's got his average at the moment, but I think he starts and, does what he does. But yeah, not a great deal of upside, but I think for 480, like you could do worse.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
No,
don't think
that's
he'll
fair.
do much different to what like a Burton might get you on a pretty consistent occasion, and he's 100k less than him. So um, for that, yeah, it's pretty good. And the thinnest at 5'8", it's there already. You say it every single year. There's just no good 5'8" besides the top three. Not saying he's going to be a top 3 5'8" at all. No, probably not even close to it. But he's not priced as a top 3 5'8". He's at 480. So Dylan Walker's not far off, and I would much prefer to have an actual 5'8" that starts and plays. Who like he can do it. And the thing is, like, if SJ's going to be injured, or if he's going to be taking a bit of the a bit of that workload off him to start the year, it actually could be all right. But
Yeah.
again, man, it's just one of those plays. If you've run out of cash, maybe
Yeah.
not
No,
bad.
I agree. Dylan Walker and Tamari Martin, I don't see as real big players for Supercoach this year. So happy to skip past their halfback. Chanel Harris Tavita is priced at almost bottom dollar, 238K. And I know you said that Metcalf has that locked in position, but I think Chanel Harris Tavita could maybe become a 5'8" sneaky option for the Warriors. Not early, bit more once again, let him get his feet wet and the like, but he's one to keep an eye on at that very bottom dollar price tag.
Mm.
Sean Johnson is a quick talking point in terms of just, is he a realistic option for someone who's looking at avoiding maybe the Hines or Cleary for whatever reason, maybe it's to free up a bit of money. He's priced at 793K, averaged 77 points last year. My argument for this one is I originally was all for Johnson. I actually had him in my first team I actually picked this year. And then I quickly realized he was freaky last year. Like, he was next
Yeah.
level. And the thing is, he struggled to go with Hines or Cleary consistently last year. Like, even with the average there at 77, like, for mine, it just seems like a no brainer. You need at least Hines or Cleary, if not both. So for mine to start this year, Johnson isn't an option.
No, I don't think he's an option really. Not considering what we know about him right now, anyway. Um, if you really want to go against the grain and not have Cleary or Hines, realistically, you're probably not going to be up there too high in the overalls. It's just the way of the game, you know what I mean? Like, you can go against it as much as you want and spread the wealth out, but like, they're the high scoring players for a reason. And it was SJ's best year in a long, long time, and he still averaged like 20 points less than Hines did. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, there's different levels of these guys. They're just nuts. And that was a standout year for him. He's I just don't see the value up anymore for him. He was great last year because he was so cheap to begin with, because again, like, he hadn't been doing it for a long time. Um, his starting price last year was 450, 456. So, man, 456. Imagine getting a 450K
Get that.
halfback as good as SJ at the moment. Like, you don't really have that right now. So, there's his appeal. He went up a lot in cash, and it was just fun to ride the Warriors because they were just doing this stuff, and it was so good to watch. And everyone was all about it. Literally everyone in this whole league was just wanting to see the Warriors do good.
What's up, baby?
What's up? I think that he has kind of hit his peak, really, as far as like a price goes, and potentially even what he can do. Like, at his very best last year in that team, you saw what he'd done. And he had those games where he scored like 150 points. He did it maybe 5 times. Yeah, these other two are doing it almost every other game.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like,
I know
yeah,
it's basically,
yeah.
you know who you got to go. Like,
You
it's
just you just got to
we
do it,
could
and
we
that's
could
that's not including any of his potential injury risk, which he's had every single year. Like, he's had an injury, his hamstrings have done something, or he's whatever's happened. He's been injured every year. Um, he just didn't really have
and
to
that's
worry
when
about that last
Chanel
year.
could become a that's when
Yeah,
Chanel could become an option. If there is an injury
yeah.
to Johnson, then I do look at Chanel a lot,
Mm,
and I'll go pretty much straight away, because compared to all the other bottom dollar sort of halfbacks and 5'8" in that sort of this year, I know I'm pretty much most confident in Chanel because he's been there, done it before, and he's actually he's a good player. Like,
mm.
he's a talented player, and around he will have arguably one of the most talented backlines in the competition at his disposal next year. So if he was able to get in there and get at least like a 10-game run or something, I reckon he could generate some decent cash there. So yeah,
Yeah.
he's definitely a sneaky one if Johnson goes down.
Yeah, if Johnson goes down, obviously, like, you would expect him to come back up because Falkman's not there, with his whole thing going on. So,
Oh, where
um,
is he?
oh
No one
mate,
knows.
he's gotten absolutely stitched
Unfortunately,
up. Poor bloke. He had
yeah,
a deal with him, and now Now he's got nothing. Now he's got to pay for his own bills, his medical bills. So it's kind of, he just got shafted, absolutely shafted. Feel sorry for him.
Welcome to the real world. You got to pay
Yeah,
for these surgeries, guys.
yeah.
But yeah, I do feel for Paul Volkman. It's not a situation to laugh at, I don't think. But yeah,
No.
it's
Um, but like I'll just quickly touch on what you'd mentioned with like Chanel, with his potential cash price option, because I know you're very hot on going with Cleary and Hines to start with. That basically puts you out of contention for every one of these little up and down cash movers, because do you want to trade away from one of them? No. So you got to just own it now.
that's all right.
Because there will be halves that will come up and down, and they'll do that, right? And you think, okay, if you've got the one gun and you're going to leave him in there forever, you can kind of cycle the second one over and over if you find that value up and down. But if you've got Hines and Cleary, you'd be mad to sell one of them to get Chanel Harris to
You
be,
know what
even
the
though
I
you're banking probably 700K, maybe
that's
600. That's a shitload of cash. Um,
you know what the ideal would be? I'll tell you right now. I don't want it to happen. As a rugby league fan, I do not want it to happen. But I'll go Cleary and Hines. They get me away to a flyer. I'm sitting pretty overall, and the head-to-head leads the like. And then I don't know, 7 weeks into it, one of them gets an injury. I obviously don't ever wish this upon a player. And then then a Johnson goes down as well, and then Chanel comes along, and as you just said, oh, downgrade, free up 700. And then you start to play. Then you start to play Supercoach. And then you're like, hang on. Look at the Fafita, look at Tino, look at the likes. Like, that's when you start lighting up and you start going, all right, we're
yeah,
looking good here. But obviously, you never want to wish that, but that would be sort of those dream scenarios. But you are right.
worst resort.
I
Yeah.
locking myself into two players, but I'm happy to lock myself into those
Yeah,
two.
yeah, and they're the best too for a reason. And that's the thing when you look at SJ and go, he's just at his very, very best. He still wasn't there. Yeah, and it's tricky now. You see him walking around and he's injured, and you're thinking, shit, is already started? Like, are we already expecting this out of SJ? I don't know. So yeah, I don't know. I really like the player. I wish him all the best, and I don't think he's got a great deal left in him.
Could be his last year.
Could be his last year. I don't think he does what he did last year. Realistically, man, it was a hell of a year for him. I could only see it going down, unfortunately. Whether it's price or points or overalls or a bit of both, or it's a little bit more inconsistent and patchier. Yeah, he'd have to go right down into the 600s, 500s for me to try and get on him again. Or the other two
No.
maybe don't become an option, but there's a lot of ifs, man. I probably won't do it again because I had him last year and I really enjoyed it because he did really, really well. But it was kind of towards the back too, because he did a consistent job, 70s, and he had those really big 150 games, but they were at the back end. They weren't consistent throughout. So, yeah.
No, I agree. Let's get into the forwards, and with the forwards, I'm basically just going to throw them both together, front row forward and second row, because the reason I say that, I look at the options and I think they basically just are straightforward. In a way, I think they're all pretty much sort of priced at about what you're going to get from them.
Mm.
Unfortunately for the Warriors this year, I don't feel like there's really a cheap option yet, because again, like the Titans, for instance, they've got quite an experience and some depth in the forwards. So we just sort of know who's going to get those spots. Cape will obviously come over for the Broncos, priced at 548 though, and there's just, I think with the fact that there is some mid-tier options that are a bit cheaper and probably generate some more points than that, he's not really the option. Jackson Ford was great last year.
Mm.
Can he continue that? That will be the question. Tohu Harris at 680 is always just one of those guys that floats around. Average last year 66. Again, was one of those that sort of seemed to get some injuries or be playing just purely busted. Like he
Yeah, he
just
was.
seems to. He's the definition of a warrior. That bloke. He
Yeah.
is just doesn't stop somehow, and he just looks like, you
No.
look at him and you're like, he's like, if he was a machine, you just say stop using it. Just let it rest
Yeah,
and relax.
I know.
Just put it away in the corner.
Yeah, he's blown a gasket. There's steam coming out of him, and things are popping off the sides. But yeah, he's busted, man, all the time, and he doesn't change what he does. He's insane. Um, you think eventually it's got to take its toll on the poor bloke because he's always bandaged up. His whole body's wrapped up. He's a freaking mummy out there, and he just keeps doing it. He plays insane minutes too. So, um, yeah, he's a beast, man. I think for draft, excellent. I think if you could have had the choice to have someone else, you probably would, because it pains you to go out there and you don't think he's ever going to come off, really, because he doesn't seem to, but he does always just freaking have to get wrapped up somewhere. So they are kind of priced, where they're going to do their job. There isn't any cashies anymore. Jackson Ford was the last one. He was in the 280s or something when he started last year, so it was really nice. That's what I mean, man. We were blessed last year with how many freaking cashies we had. Took it for granted. Now there's none left.
AFB,
yeah. Just what a year from the bloke. Just scored so many tries. I rode every single league wave with him. I drafted him. I had him in Supercoach. I had him in fantasy. I loved it, and it was just because I think he was actually pretty cheap, really, for where he sort of come. He would have been in the 500s, 550s. So it was nice to have, but unexpected form, man. Just immense player out there, and very reliant on those tries to keep up with the likes of your Haas and your Tino and stuff, who he was categorized with. Very, very try dependent. So, the effort's there, but he needs that try to get him up into that next group, and that's where he's been priced. He's been priced just as pretty much where Haas is, and doesn't do the same amount of load as Haas does. He scores more tries. He scores more tries last year than Haas did, but that's you can't rely on that when you're thinking about where someone's average falls in. You can never rely on someone to score a try. But for a front rower, they're not expected to. It's more so about what everything else they do in the game. If he can keep the tries flowing, shit, he's back in. We're back on AFB, but it's a big if.
there's still some temptation. There's 7%, but in that position, that is a decent number. 740K though.
Yeah, it's a lot of money to
I
spend
just
on a
feel like
front
if you're
rower.
going that, you're going Haas.
Well, exactly, and you're not going to have both, man. I don't see that sort of value immediately being a priority for your front rowers. I think down the line, you do want to get those two guns in that spot, and you're just going to run with them for a long time. But straight out of the gates, I think having $1.5 million tied up in two players in your front row, it's too much value to have just relying on a base stat, because you can't expect them to score those tries all the time. But it's not to say you can't get 70 and an 80. Like he might reach his price and his average, and his break even's probably going to be very, very flat. But again, you just got to hope he doesn't get injured, because he has had that thing going the last few years.
And where his headspace is at with these, obviously his family issues back in
Well, yeah,
Sydney
he's
that he
already
needs to
announced that he's
come
moving back
for.
too. So that's another
never
thing
know
to
with that.
consider. Yeah, I didn't really think too much about that, to be honest with you. But now that you bring it up,
I've got him in the know.
yeah, for the time being, I would say so. I'd like to see some good form out there before I make the switch. But even still, yeah, I don't know. I think he's just priced out a bit too far at the moment for me to see him as a good option. If only it was 550. Cut. Not with that.
Let's finish. Let's finish with a hooker. Not a bad way to finish the night, I guess. So, Wade Egan,
shit.
576K. It's late. We get to this stage, and you said we get a little bit loose, but for us now, it's 11 and 10 o'clock. So,
Yeah.
we are pumping along. Last bit, Egan, is he an option for again the non-Harry Grant owner? He was, I think he rode a bit of the success last year of the Warriors.
Yeah.
576. I just can't ever see myself saying I'm going to start with Wade Egan at 576K.
No, Wade Egan's big appeal
Doesn't
was the
seem
fact that
logical.
he wasn't that expensive, like he's the fifth most expensive hooker. Um, but he started around 500 too last year, so that didn't change. It was just his very early season form. He scored maybe 4 or 5 tries in a row, or something like that. He was averaging very, very well for the first, I think, five or at least 5 games, because I had him in my draft
Yeah.
team in NRL, and he was actually my very, very, very late bench hooker pickup in my draft league. So he was on no one's radar.
Handy.
No one
Handy.
wanted him. Yeah, it was almost to the point where I was like, I don't even want him off the waivers. Um, but as a hooker, obviously he has value because there aren't too many good ones. So as a backup for that, fair enough. But now he's priced up very high. He's more expensive than Robson, and I've got mad raps on Robson. So for that alone, no. For the amount of injuries he copped last year, throat injury, concussions, this and this and this. It was just all random stuff too, but it was pretty consistent. Enough to just be like, no, I just don't want to. I don't want to do it again. I do not want to do it again because it's going to be
Another one
patchy.
that another one just throws his body around. Another
Yeah, he
one of
just
those
gets his
Warriors
head
players
in
that
very
just
awkward
yeah.
spots. Because he played 3, he missed 1. He played 2, he missed 2 or 3. He played 3 and missed 2. He played 2 and missed 1. So it was just you can't string a straight line of games together from him. And that you definitely don't want that because that price at 570, he's your starting hooker. Be it not Harry Grant, Cook, Marshall King, any of those other guys. Like that's the coin that you're spending for the main guy. But if your main guys can only play 2-3 games at a time, you do not want to have him on. So I think it was kind of the same as the Reed Marnie thing, where Marnie might not have been any good, but at least he played every game.
Yeah.
Because it was between the two. I remember it pretty clearly. It was they were both kind of half on at that time, and you thought, oh, which one is it, one or the other? If you're going to make a late swap for anyone, I think I had Marnie because I didn't want to do Egan because I had drafted Egan in a different league and I wasn't super fresh on going all in on him. So I went with Marnie for a little bit, and admittedly, he played basically every game, barring 2 or 3 for the year, but they weren't exciting games. So got off that one pretty quick after. So yeah, it's just too much coin to spend really for that.
Yeah.
If you can make that many points about one thing, I think the choice has already been made. It's maybe just not worth it. But I look at Wade Egan for 576, and for literally 3K more, you got Blake Brayley, who is just so consistent, so far from injury, and no
An
origin.
option.
He's literally gonna play every single minute of every single game. He's much more of an option for the same price with
No,
the Sharks
I
run to
agree.
begin
And
with too. So yeah, if he was, a lot of ifs. I can say if he was cheaper 1,000 times, but if he was cheaper, I wouldn't look at him. It still puts him in a weird bracket. Yeah, I don't know. I'd need to see some miracle stuff coming from him again to see him, but he just got to string a few games together. But I don't think what's his
no,
ownership? 3%. Yeah, 3%. That's fair.
again, I can't believe we've spoken so much on Wade Egan, but here we are. We've found a way to do so. But I'm with you. I'm going to just wipe the hands off with that one and just say for mine, Wade Egan, no. But guys, I
Sorry,
hope
champ.
you enjoyed this one. Again, there was some big teams, some big plays in this one. A lot of excitement around obviously being the first day that the app is live now to everyone. We anticipate even more Supercoach content. Now the app is live, I will get around to also getting the competitions live that we will be
Mm-hmm.
running. There is something massive that I'm going to announce in the next couple of days for our overall competition that we're going to be putting on together. There's a massive prize. So make sure you're around both our Facebook and Instagram pages to hear that announcement or see that announcement. It is something you want to be playing for. Really, really cool. But again, thanks everyone who is listening. The podcasts and the YouTube numbers are going through the roof. Really, we do appreciate it. It will go a long way if you can just go that extra bit further. Just like it and just hit that subscribe button on either YouTube or the little bell icon on your podcast, because then you'll get notifications when our information or when our podcasts do come out. It does go a long way of helping promote the page as well. And also just give us a rating. Give us that rating. It does help heaps, and it gets the page out a bit further, because people will search, say, Supercoach, and if we're up there rated quite highly, then we'll pop up just naturally. So thanks for tuning in with us for this long. We really appreciate your time. Hopefully, we've helped you out a little bit. We've probably confused you. We've probably made things hard, but trust me, there's a lot of Panadol getting used at the moment, because this is a hard time for us Supercoach lovers. It's trying to sort out the best team, and it's impossible to find early on. But thanks for listening, guys. Really do appreciate it. We are off to get some shut eye, thoroughly deserved. But yeah, thanks, and you'll see us for the next one.